Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schomler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 675. And joining me is my good friend and co-host, Nathan Hawthorne. Nathan, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm feeling a little blurry, a little
Yeah, I don't know what
fuzzy right
happened.
now.
You were fine. I don't actually know this is our recording software. I think your camera just freaked out. Like literally as we started the show. I think it's hilarious and funny. Go
It's
maybe
like
snap your fingers.
it like pulled its focus somewhere else here. Okay.
I think we just rolled
back.
it. I don't know what
We
happened.
just had to pull the focus back to me. I'm doing great. It was a great day, great Monday for what Mondays are worth. Doing well.
Yeah, it's funny. We're like nearing the end of the year. I'm taking Friday off, going to the Oregon coast. So
Nice.
It's a 4-day week for me. I can't wait till I'm just trying to get through the week. Basically, you're like 4 days. I can do a 4-day week. By the way, feels so much more manageable than a 5-day work week. It's kind of insane how much more like an extra day. I'm like, I can do 4 days, no problem.
It really does change things. 5 versus 4 versus 3, even going into the office, not going into the office. At least for me, I know your job in sales is a little bit different. But man, when you've got a little bit more time at home to kind of clean a few things up, do a few chores in between, meetings, chats, whatever, feels good.
I will say, I feel like I got a really good balance right now with work and family, and I've been really kind of rolling in my personal life. I haven't been sharing very much on Instagram, and it's just because I'm doing great. I'm like, it's funny how I'm just quietly doing my thing, kind of got my head down.
Yeah.
Let's talk about NFL Week 7. We just had it, and we just watched Monday Night Football. The Ravens beat the Buccaneers 41-31. What'd you make of that game?
If you're seeing the end of game scoreline, just understand that this game was not as close as it looked. 41-31, yeah, but realistically, how this game felt was like 50-15. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The Ravens were just a dominant team. They were great in the run game. They were great over the top. Lamar, 5 passing touchdowns. It was incredible. An incredible game.
Dude, it was Lamar's night. 5 touchdowns. He had as many touchdowns as incomplete passes. 17 for 22 passing, 281 yards.
Wow.
Derrick Henry, 15 carries, 169 yards. Most of that was on this one 81-yard run down the left sideline. He didn't score. He got tackled, but I honestly thought it was mostly a quiet night for Derrick Henry other than that one play. But it was just a dominating performance top to bottom by the Ravens.
Yeah, absolutely dominating. After that first drive where the Buccaneers went down and scored quick, things got kind of hairy for them offensively. I know obviously they lost Mike Evans right after that first drive. That hurts your offense big time and kind of makes it hard to get things going. Once again, we had some referees going a little flag happy on the national stage. That can kind of kill momentum. I am really curious how different this game would have looked had Mike Evans been healthy for the remainder of the game. But I still think that the Ravens would have imposed your will and, probably still won by 2 scores here.
There was a moment in this game, the Tampa's up 10-0. And actually on the opening possession for the Ravens, they got shut down by the Buccaneers defense. It was like 4th and 28 after a 3rd and long. Lamar gets sacked again. It actually looked like, oh, wow, Tampa's got all the momentum. And the thing that really kind of swung the game the other direction, Mike Evans has a touchdown in his hands. He drops it. And then gets rolled up, injures a hamstring in the process. That took a touchdown off the board by Tampa. And then, on 2nd and goal, Baker throws an interception in the end zone. And then very quickly, one play later, the Ravens are 1st and goal on the goal line. And it just really swung the game completely. And after that, it was all Ravens. But it really didn't start that way. I thought early on, oh, man, Tampa, they're 4-2. They beat the Ravens here. They're 5-2. That'd be really impressive. And then the game just totally went a different direction after the first quarter, basically.
Yeah, and that's how football goes, right? All it takes is a little bit of momentum. You start rolling, you start feeling yourself, feeling the juice, and things can get out of hand really quickly if you are on the other side of that Derrick Henry wrecking ball. It was just a special night for Lamar. It was a great night for Derrick Henry, who I thought was going to house that, like you said, but McCollum was able to catch him on that deep angle. Not much else to say here, honestly, other than Tampa Bay kind of just got worked out.
Here's my question. Is Lamar the favorite right now for NFL MVP? I mean, it honestly is very nebulous. There isn't really a clear front runner in my opinion, but Lamar's name has been mentioned a lot, and tonight felt like that to me. Like, oh, he's the best player on the field by a mile.
Yeah, to me, absolutely, he does look like he's the best player on the field by a mile. Again, he continues to improve his ability, dropping back to pass. I thought tonight he was very selective with his runs as well. Again, that's one of the things I talked about to start the year for Lamar Jackson. Can he be a little bit more selective with when he goes down and tries to make plays with his legs? I thought that was special. But showing up against Dallas, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Washington, Tampa Bay, really all stellar games from him. Really, really impressive. Arguably the front runner. Josh Allen's another guy that's up there, but maybe we can have another MVP discussion later in this podcast.
Another thing about the Ravens, they're 5-2, but they started the year 0-2 with a 1-score loss to Kansas City, a 3-point loss to the Raiders. They've been 5-0 since then. And I think some of that you can say, hey, look, they new running back, a lot of new changes on their offense. It makes sense to me. Like, hey, you're getting things figured out the first 2 weeks, but since then they've been rolling. And the play that really sticks in my mind that I'm not going to get over all year long is against Cincinnati. Lamar has that play where he avoids a sack. He's rolling along the right side of the sideline, throws that touchdown pass, and you're just like, is that the best play we've seen all year? And maybe in a couple of years from a quarterback? It was unbelievable. It was like, wow, oh my gosh. I think Lamar, to me, is, look, I don't know what the conversation looks like. We're only 7 games in. Feels like MVP to me, though. I know it'd be his third, which is kind of weird, but he plays like it constantly.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the flip side here, looking at the Buccaneers, like arguably Baker Mayfield statistically could be up there. I think a few of those touchdowns kind of came, they came late in games, like when they were trying to make comebacks, whether that was against the Falcons, pouring it on against New Orleans. But this Tampa Bay team has been inconsistent kind of throughout the year. Some ups, some downs, sometimes where they look great, sometimes where they don't. And now, unfortunately, with this injury to Mike Evans, hamstring looks like that thing peeled off the bone. The way he was pulling at that in the end zone does not look good. Chris Godwin, gruesome leg injury at the end of the game with 30 seconds left. I'm not sure what the objective was there. I know in theory they were still in the game, but earlier in that fourth quarter, you should have just been trying to run it out and go home. Again, I know that's not necessarily the competitive things to say, but you got to protect your players in that situation. Adding to the list of injuries that the Bucs already have. So that's going to be really unfortunate, knowing that next week they've got Atlanta, then they got KC, and then San Francisco. So not looking great for the Buccaneers.
The early chatter is a dislocated ankle, which would be season ending.
Yeah.
And so not only
his foot was, supposed to go this way. It was not going that way anymore.
No,
it wasn't. And I really don't mean to laugh at it, but it's just it was gruesome.
Well, I think what's funny is me not saying, like, I wait till we get the injury report, but like it looks by all intents and purposes like he's done for the year. I mean, you look at the video and you're like, I'm not a doctor, but that's horrifying.
And I was one of the guys who had been kind of out on the Buccaneers, honestly, this year. And they started to show me a few things and capability to win some big games, obviously beating the Lions, going toe-to-toe with Atlanta. And I thought, hey, maybe they've really got a chance here. In this stretch, Baltimore, Atlanta, Kansas City, San Francisco was going to tell us a lot. Now, I just don't feel that way, given the fact that they don't have their stars on offense. It's going to make it really, really tough.
I will say, so they're 4-3. This loss was not only a loss on the win column, but losing your 2 best receivers and one of them for the year, probably another one, who knows? I mean, look, Mike Evans had a hard time getting his shoes on, or getting his shoes off on the sideline. Like, that's a big deal to me. Who knows how long Mike Evans is going to be out. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app. Use Prize Picks while you watch NFL games this fall, because making picks makes watching games more engaging, and you could turn something like $5 into $50. Prize Picks offers quick and easy deposits. You can even use Apple Pay. So put your skills to the test in daily fantasy. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That is prizepicks.com/CLNS using code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. I personally look at the year so far for Tampa and go, man, they grabbed my respect.
They
The
did
new offensive coordinator looked
100%.
awesome. Baker's played really well. The defense has been lights out. The way that their secondary, their DBs tackle in the run game is really incredible.
Yeah.
I was kind of with you. Like, I don't know what to make of Tampa. How good are they? No matter what the rest of the year looks like, if these two injuries really throw off the rest of the year, I think they're going to be competitive. They got Jalen McMillan, they got Trey Palmer, they got Sterling Shepard. They're not, as far as backup receivers go, they're not completely cupboard bare, or the cupboard isn't completely bare. I think they could still win their division. Honestly, the NFC South, it feels like it's up for grabs. New Orleans isn't doing anything right now. Carolina's atrocious. It's going to come down to Tampa and Atlanta. It really depends on will Atlanta squander their opportunity or not. I think Tampa's still in the mix, even without Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. And I really want to make this clear. If the year goes off the rails for them because of these injuries, I still really admire Baker. He's grabbed my respect. Todd Bowles grabbed my respect. I thought the way the beginning of this year played out, and as competitive as this team was with a first-year offensive coordinator, Baker Mayfield, what they got going on defense, you got to walk away with a lot of respect for Tampa. And then also consider a hurricane like just destroyed their city. That emotionally has to play a role here. So it's one of the better 4-3 teams, I think, and one that even if the season tails off from here for reasons that are kind of not their fault, going into next year, my opinion of Tampa has changed a lot based on the first couple games from them.
Big time. Couldn't agree more.
Let's talk about Sunday Night Football. This is a game that I find really, really interesting. I want to make kind of an announcement, I guess. My whole life, I've never had a favorite team. I was a Mariners fan as a kid. I've told the story many times. Their ownership broke my heart, made bad decisions that when I was an 11-year-old, I couldn't fall in line with, and they really were frustrating. And so ever since then, I've just hesitated to ever claim a favorite team in football. I've always been a pro player person, but I find myself with a favorite team in football. And it's one that, like, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm curious what people think about it. I don't know.
Say it. He's about to say it. What are you going to say?
Dude, I love the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm not going to lie to you. I really, I think
No.
I just find myself, I love Mike Tomlin. I really find myself compelled by the city, by the people. I find myself to be a Steelers fan. It's kind of funny. And I'm like, oh, wow, it's honest. And I found myself on Monday, or I guess on Sunday Night Football, not only because I got struggles with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, but very much because it's the Steelers involved, rooting for the Steelers. And like next Monday night, it's Giants and Steelers again. I get to watch my favorite team once again. But people that have followed the show for 6 years now, no, I've never had a favorite team. I do now. And I've kind of had this quietly been in denial about it all season. I'm like, no, it's honest. I really just find myself kind of really loving the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is weird, but true. On Sunday Night Football, the Steelers beat the Jets 37-15. I got a lot to say about this game, but I want to first throw to you. What do you make of this game?
Man, what a ballsy call from Mike Tomlin to sit Justin Fields and start Russell Wilson. There was so much chatter about that to start the week. And, Justin Fields, he's 4-2. He should have the opportunity to keep going. But for Mike to be in practice and be talking with Arthur Smith and be able to realize we can get a little bit more out of this offense and to show up in what historically over the past couple of years has been a very good defense and put up 37 points. I know one of them was a defensive touchdown, but still impressive. And the most important part is complementary football. You produced a 100-yard rusher, you produced a 100-yard receiver, and Russell Wilson looked like he was in command of the game outside of this really, really bad lateral throw, I think, in the first half that's been clipped 1,000 times. Like, Russell looked very, very good. He looked efficient. He looked effective. And you pointed this out. It looked like he knew where to go with the football. And that was so important for the Steelers offense to get going, right? The football's got to go to the right place on time. Justin Fields wasn't doing that. Granted, he was making plays in other ways, but you see how much easier it is offensively when you have a quarterback who knows where to go with it, can deliver the football, and still extend plays a little bit. That was really awesome to see.
Russ also made a couple of plays that I don't think Justin Fields is capable of making. There was a play in a bootleg where defender's in his face. Russ dips down that sidearm throw under a defender just to the little flat route. And then he had a couple throws down the sideline, the goal line fade, another one to George Pickens both times, where it ball's up and down and coming down at a down trajectory. They talked about it on the broadcast too, but like that's a throw you haven't seen Justin Fields make all year. Every throw is a one ball, meaning it's right on a line. He hasn't thrown any of those 2 or 3 balls, which have got more air underneath them. Russ adds a dimension in this offense throwing the football that just we haven't seen all year, an ability to throw the ball, frankly, downfield. I'm very surprised. I did not expect Russell Wilson to play as well as he did. Now it's game 1, but that's a good Jets defense. He wasn't perfect. He was 16 for 29 passing, 264 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, not every throw was perfect. I thought nearly every decision was perfect. The ball is going to the right target every time. There was a sequence of plays on the goal line I hated. I think there was a second and goal play that threw a goal line fade to George Pickens covered by Sauce Gardner. I'm like, hey, sorry, dude, that's a low percentage throw I hate. Now, I think it was a check at the line of scrimmage where
Just hand that one off. Called. Just hand that one off.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to talk anymore about Russell Wilson throwing the ball on the goal line ever again. I thought for sure second and goal, like the 4-yard line, they're going to run the ball 2 plays in a row. They actually threw the ball 2 plays in a row and ended up kicking a field goal. It's not perfect, but man, Russ looked way better than I expected, and he really did improve the offense beyond what Justin Fields was capable of doing. I don't think you throw away Justin Fields. You keep him. He's a good backup. He can play if needed. We don't know if Russell Wilson's going to play the rest of the year. You never know what happens throughout the year. Guys get hurt all the time, and they got a really brutal stretch down the year. Their final 10 games are like insane. So if you're a Steelers fan, you shouldn't feel safe, right? They're 5-2. That's great, but there's a lot more challenges up ahead. And I will say, in defense of Pittsburgh, actually, the Jets should have had 13 points. They blocked a PAT that, for some reason, got called for leverage. That was a terrible call. I was like, I don't know what.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are we doing? Like, what do you see? It frustrates me. And I actually thought watching the Georgia Texas game, we saw an SEC crew in college football.
Yeah.
Overturn a call that just, it's obvious. I don't know that the rules actually allow for you to overturn the call they did, but I don't care. I want calls to be made that that make sense. And I thought that was a call that didn't make sense. And you saw on video, it's a bad call, and the NFL rules don't allow for you to overturn bad calls, even if it's common sense. That's the wrong call that was made. Can we talk about the Jets though? Because I have a lot to say. I'm curious what you'll start with first.
Yeah, I mean, if you want the Jets take, you can go to ESPN, you can go to Fox, you can go to anybody, and they're blowing this story up, right? At the end of the day, again, this is my opinion. Robert Saleh, to me, was not the problem at all. It was the offense being complimentary and playing effective, right? And whether that's on Aaron or whether that's on Nat Hackett, I don't think that the defense was the problem. He exits the building, and now all of a sudden you're starting to see some defensive struggles and inability to make big stops, and especially on third down. And that run game that got shored up after the first game and a half of the season started to rear its head again as being a poor run defense. There were some plays, I think, that flipped this game in the Steelers' favor heavy. Obviously, Garrett Wilson's drop pass leading to an interception, essentially handing the Steelers a free touchdown. That's a big deal. But that's the microcosm of the Jets, right? They shoot themselves in the foot week after week after week. They did it previously against the Bills, or the week before against the Bills, missing field goals, other offensive miscues. It's just really tough to see what should be a better team on paper not produce and not execute when it matters. They get up at the podium every single week. It was Rodgers, it was Saleh, it's Ulbrich, it's Garrett, it's everybody's saying, yeah, we just need to execute better. We need to execute better. When are you going to execute better? That's what I want to know. And this isn't necessarily related to the breakdown of the game, but at a certain point, there needs to be ownership about that getting better and that accountability. Aaron, to me, wants to be the owner, but not take the accountability. He wants to be able to control, get his buddy Devontae, Lazard, like no problem having them offensively, but then you got to take some accountability for how things are going. You can't get up at the podium and point fingers. You've been in this game entirely too long to get up there and start pointing fingers. That's what say you, my good sir?
Oh, I mean, the honest thought, I really have lost respect for Aaron Rodgers, whatever there was left for me. when he first went to the Jets, I was really rooting for him. I really was like, oh, this is fun. This is interesting. It'll be cool. He was on Hard Knocks. I thought it was really entertaining. And as it's gone on, and the way blame has been, the way fingers have been pointed by him, and the way he's handled difficult situations, and the way he said things at the podium and shirked responsibility, and frankly, he has denied the responsibility of leadership with the Jets organization to me.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up watching Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and I watched the guys that I idolized as a kid at the quarterback position, frankly, take on responsibility for things that weren't their fault. Even they took extreme ownership of things, even if it wasn't their fault. Aaron's the exact opposite, and I just can't rock with that. You're not going to be a leader if you're not taking on accountability. I actually think this is a bit inflammatory, maybe, or a bit extreme. I don't know, but I think Aaron's the problem. Like, very clearly, it's his lack of leadership, because the team is capable. They got the right players. They've got all the right. The people are there. The bodies are there. On paper, this team should be winning. There's something going on from a leadership standpoint that isn't working. And hey, he's the face of the team. And regularly, he's pointing fingers at other people and other things. Robert Saleh getting fired was a microcosm of that. Frankly, Robert Saleh getting fired did one thing. It gave their defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, more responsibility than he already had. Yeah. Since becoming head coach, looks like he's a bit overwhelmed. Oh, man. Hey, there was a perfect way to solve that. You have Robert Saleh as head coach taking all the difficult stuff. And then the defensive coordinator can do his job, which is just coaching the defense. But now you got a guy out of position doing more than he probably should, looking a bit overwhelmed at times. The Jets have shot themselves in the foot in every way humanly possible this year.
Yeah.
Bad routes, fumbles, turnovers, bad decisions from management. It's insane how disappointing this team has been, top to bottom. And it's really, I find it entertaining. They're 2-5. Aaron Rodgers has 7 interceptions. Some of them not his fault. Like the throw to Garrett Wilson on the left sideline, that's a dime actually dropped by Garrett Wilson, an uncharacteristic drop. But it is laughable that, you waive $12 million worth of fines for Hassan Reddick, and that's a bad precedent, I think, to set anyway. But you're really bending over backwards to bring him in. That move didn't pay off. Trade for Davante Adams, you're still losing. By the way, Davante Adams, 3 catches, 30 yards, no touchdowns. Had a couple plays that were thrown to him that didn't deliver. He dropped a pass. I don't know if that was him or Aaron. I'm not sure what's going on there, but
he had 9 targets on the day. Not all necessarily catchable. Ball was thrown his way 9 times.
And 3 catches. Like, man, it's a mess.
I don't know how healthy his hamstring is. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on that for 1 week.
Sure.
But yeah, again, like the problem wasn't offensive skill positions. That wasn't the problem. It was just the overall execution from the team, top to bottom, and it's the focus, right? They might be detailed in practice, but it's that extra second of focus that you need on every play for between 3 and 6 seconds. You just have to be locked in on the NFL football field. That's the average length of your play. 3 to 6 seconds. Can you have that full feeling of focus? And the Jets just don't have that.
I want to make a really weird reference. I don't know if you watch this show or not. I watch Love is Blind with Molly, my fiance, all the time.
I watch Love is Blind, Habibi.
So there's a couple on that show, Nick and Hannah. Hannah is extremely critical of Nick to the point of like they're cooking spaghetti and he's like can't figure it out. But I think it's because he's so scared of doing the wrong thing. He's actually asking more questions than are necessary because he's so afraid of getting in trouble and being berated. Hannah on the show didn't create a situation where Nick felt safe to ask questions or clarify things or make stuff happen. Partially because he was so afraid of getting in trouble. I would imagine Aaron Rodgers is very similar to work with, where you're nervous, you're on your toes all the time. You probably don't feel safe asking questions because some questions are going to be treated as stupid questions. You're not going to be treated properly if you ask for clarification. I don't think Aaron has created a safe environment in the Jets locker room. I'm not there. I don't know what's going on, but from the outside looking in, it looks toxic and weird and bad. And frankly, as a leader of a football team, it's your job to create a healthy, good culture. Clearly, that's not happening in the Jets locker room. And sorry, dude, but my entire life, when there's a problem in the locker room, you look to the quarterback first. Oh, and by the way, when you look to that quarterback, all he's doing is pointing fingers at Mike Williams and other people and frankly not taking accountability. I haven't heard Aaron say, yeah, that's my bad, I got to do better once this year. Maybe he said it. I don't watch every press conference, all 40 minutes of them really detailed, but I watch enough to go like, I haven't heard that once from Aaron. I think it would have been reported on by now. I don't know more to add to it. It's just funny. I really enjoyed a 2-5 Jets team with Aaron Rodgers throwing 7 interceptions. I think right now the offense might have been better with Zach Wilson actually than Aaron Rodgers, which is like,
okay, slow down, slow your roll, slow your roll.
Do you think they're not? Do you think they're probably still 2-5? Like,
yeah, they probably are. I think they probably beat Denver. I'll say that. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened in Denver that day, but they probably beat Denver. Minnesota, probably not. Buffalo, maybe. Nah. I don't know. Just it's again the microcosm of the Jets. Poorly run franchise, lack of attention to details starts from the top and it trickles all the way down.
I will say the rest of their schedule. They play Houston in 2 weeks. That's a rough game. They play Seattle later this year. That's a tough one, and Buffalo again. But
not to gloss over that, what you're just trying to get into, but they need to beat New England next week, and they need to win soundly. This can't be a 23-17 win. You need to score 30 plus points, and you need to hold them to, I don't know, maybe less than 20. You have to put points up on the board, and you have to stop them from scoring. I know that sounds really dumb now that I think about it, because that's how you play football. But you need to show that there is a gap between the worst or maybe second, third worst team in the NFL and Aaron Rodgers' Jets. You have to show that there's a gap. Otherwise, this locker room might go downhill really, really quick.
They can lose 2 more games this year and still finish 10-7. So they lose to Houston and Buffalo, but they got to win and frankly, every other game on their schedule feels winnable to me. Jaguars, Miami, Rams, Jacksonville, Colts, Arizona, Patriots. Like, these are all winnable games on their schedule, but they got to take care of business. The team is good on paper. I'm not confident they could beat teams they should, because they haven't so far this year. That Denver game is the one you're like, how in the world did you not walk away with a victory on that day? I think the year is lost. They're 2-5, but let's acknowledge if they play to their standard and they play up to their what's possible from them, they should finish the year 10-7. I just don't know that they're going to.
Yeah, 100%. I'd have a really tough time believing that they're going to only lose 2 games. Like, even Seattle, I think, is going to be a tough game. Tariq Woolen and Devin Witherspoon, like, those guys are tough corners on the outside. Like, even if you have Devontae and Garrett Wilson, like, that's going to be a tough out.
Arizona's tough for this team, I think.
Arizona's tough. We'll have to see.
What I will say, before we move on completely, George Pickens having 5 catches for 111 yards and a touchdown, over 100 yards receiving. That's not nothing, right? I think Russell Wilson really impacted and kind of unlocked George Pickens. Is that kind of how you feel about the Steelers and their young receiver having higher production than he has so far this year?
Yeah, absolutely, because they're giving him a chance, right? The only way you can catch the football if it's in your area and in a catchable radius. And that's what Russell Wilson was able to do. Put it in his radius. We've seen catch after catch from George Pickens in these dynamic, crazy situations. He is one of the best pass catchers in that fashion, right? Contested, contorted, however he comes down with it. But if you don't give him a chance, he's not going to come down with it. So that's what he's doing. He's giving receivers the opportunity to catch the football. And anytime you see Pickens one-on-one, why not take a chance?
I want to laugh. We both ignored. I think you live in San Francisco. And it was someone getting their car broken into. What was going on behind you?
I'm not going to lie. Let me go check on that.
You guys, I hope his car's okay. You never know. The Game Time app is the best place to find NBA tickets. On the Game Time app, you will find affordable tickets that are easy to buy. And here is what the Game Time app does for you. Number one, they've got the Game Time Picks feature, which allows for curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and other events. They've got all-in pricing. We're toggling this feature. Shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. There are seat views where you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Game Time has a lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And Game Time has ticket coverage where your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
San Francisco, man. Yeah, you guys know I got my golf club stolen out of the back of my car?
I know. I don't think the audience knows.
Car broken into, my golf club stolen out of the back of my car, my new QI10 driver, my P790s, my Scotty Cameron putter, all my ball markers that I've collected from the different courses I've played, scorebooks, some of my favorite scorecards from when I had some of my best rounds. Really sucks. Probably $100 worth of golf balls. Anyways, let's talk football.
Do you want unsolicited thoughts on this?
Yeah, don't leave my golf clubs in my car. Yeah, that's a good one.
I don't want to I think the word's victim blaming, but you live in downtown Portland. I thought, man, this guy knows. He's savvy. He knows downtown.
See, I was in a parking garage though.
Oh, see, that is different.
Also, this was I just went to the driving range, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to leave my golf clubs in the car because I'm playing tomorrow. I don't want to bring them in, take them out. Yeah. It's parked across the street. I can see it from the RIP.
I live in your old building. I used to park on the street. Now I park in the parking garage. But our parking garage has gotten broken into a shit ton here.
Yeah.
And I park my company car in our parking garage. And I had to I'll send you a picture if you want. It's kind of insane. Clear everything out to for my boss to even approve of me parking downtown. And then I actually have all my tools. I used to leave them in my truck, but now I leave them. I have a green backpack. You maybe see it behind me with it's heavy as all hell. It's full of HVAC tools, and I have to carry that down my little elevator with me. But it's you can't. I learned I can't even leave a water bottle in my car. It's too risky. I don't want to.
Crazy.
I wish I lived. Man, it's disappointing.
I don't even leave a jacket in my back seat anymore. Just a light jacket or a hoodie. I can't even leave that in there because you just don't know. Anyways, nobody feel sorry for me. We'll get it figured out.
Well, I feel bad for you. I think what sucks. We're on the topic. Let's for a second hang on it. What sucks is you have to kind of put yourself in the position of someone who's doing crime, criming, as Molly calls it.
Criming.
If you see a jacket, you wonder is there something under the jacket. You can't leave anything for risk that someone else might interpret that as something worth something.
Right.
You can leave something worthless in your backseat, but if they view it Molly had a Hello Kitty stuffed animal, and she had to take that out because she's well, you never know how that could be interpreted by someone who's on drugs and just thinks it's, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's
oh man, I didn't even tell you guys about the worst thing that got stolen from my car. So I've got my center console, right? And inside I usually keep $10-$20 cash for a gas emergency in case I don't have my phone, wallet, card, whatever. In there also I had my sunglasses that I got from the Saturday market in Portland by the waterfront. 2 for $25. I got a rose gold and brown pair, and I got a black with a light purple tint. I've had them for 4 years. They're great. Again, 2 for $25. You're not going to find a deal like that these days. Inflation's gone crazy. You're not going to find a better deal. And they stole the black pair. And I am so upset. Was it ridiculously cheap? And is it going to hurt me financially? No. But was it special to me because it was the best deal of all time? Yes. And that's what hurts the most.
We're already on San Francisco. Let's talk about the city a little more.
What a transition.
The 49ers lost. The San Francisco 49ers lost to Kansas City 28-18 on Sunday. Kansas City 6-0. We can talk about them in a moment, but the 49ers are 3-4 with injuries galore. Brock Purdy threw 3 interceptions. Deebo Samuel. I feel really bad. I think this isn't talked about right now a lot. Deebo Samuel's in the hospital with pneumonia, which my family works in healthcare. That's that's a really big deal. That's not a small thing. Pneumonia is kind of terrifying. Think about the luck that the 49ers have had this year. Deebo Samuel's got pneumonia. Christian McCaffrey has had this terrible injury, hasn't played really this year. They got a rookie wide receiver who got shot. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk's got a torn ACL. It's been such bad luck for their skill position players. The guys who they've kind of built the core of their franchise around have been unavailable so much of this year. They're 3-4. What do you make of where the 49ers are at right now as an organization? And it's a year lost.
Man, if the year, it's really tough to say that the year is lost. Their division, I think, is weak this year. The Rams haven't really turned out to be as great as we thought, even though they're starting to get healthy. Seattle Seahawks, Jekyll and Hyde, you're not sure who's going to show up. And then the Cardinals, kind of same deal, but like a lesser version of the Seahawks. You don't know what team you're going to get, but maybe it's electric, maybe it's not. So their season's not over, right? They still have plenty of opportunity to get into the playoffs. It's just the tough part is who's going to be healthy and when. Brandon Ayuk's out. Even when Christian McCaffrey comes back, what kind of volume is he going to be able to handle? Is there going to be other soft tissue injuries? Maybe now it's the hamstring or a different part of the ankle that starts to flare up. Hopefully, Jawan Jennings can come back at some point. I don't know if he's on season-ending IR or not, but he's out. You've already mentioned Deebo Samuel kind of being in and out this year now, plus the ammonia. It's just really, really tough. And for finally having a defense that isn't as top tier as it has been a couple of years, and you marry that with an offense that's just been depleted, it's been absolute worst case, bad case scenario for the Niners this year. But yeah, like I said, I don't think it's completely over. Hopefully, if they get McCaffrey back, Debo gets a little bit healthier, they can still make some things work. But this kind of felt like their Super Bowl or bust year. And then it was kind of supposed to be that the year before. But now this year, man, that window is closing quick for the Niners. And I don't want to put too much on Brock Purdy here. But you kind of see a difference between, a Mercedes and a Ferrari when you start talking about Pat and Brock and what they're able to do with limited weapons.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to be said here. First of all, the next 6 games for the 49ers are, I think, a little bit brutal. They play Dallas, then at Tampa. Tampa is got a lot of things in question right now with injuries, so that's a winnable game. Dallas is a winnable game, but after that, they play Seattle, who's been really good this year, Green Bay, Buffalo, and Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
The next 6 games for the 49ers are not a cakewalk, and they're going to make or break their season. They're 3-4 right now. It's kind of a pivotal moment. You got to come out strong and beat Dallas next week on Sunday Night Football. I think so. There's a couple ways you can look at the 49ers right now. Is this one of the lost years where we look back and go, oh, like, remember that year that everyone got hurt and we don't really think about it? Or is it the beginning of the end? Is it really kind of, hey, they missed their window? I don't know that, like, we saw Trent Williams get kicked out of the game for punching a player, retaliatory. It's really interesting. One of my high school coaches he's a 49ers fan, was really furious about this. I'm like, dude, you're the guy when I was in high school telling me never throw the second punch. So, like, you're mad about it as a football fan, but like, dude, you literally taught me when I was in high school. If they punch you, never punch back, and you're mad that one of your players punched back. And anyway, my point is this. I don't know that the 49ers as an organization can recover. Brandon Ayuk's going to be ACL and MCL torn. Where does that leave him next year? Is McCaffrey ever going to really play the way he did last couple of years? Again, he's really had significant injuries. I don't know if tendonitis in both legs is something you can overcome. Trent Williams is getting older. He's kind of really, at any moment, could retire and just walk away into the sunset. George Kittle's getting up there in age. Like, the year to win was last year or the year before, or this year, I guess. Brock Purdy at the beginning of his contract, he got great players around him. I think it's very possible the 49ers, as they currently exist, without making some pivots and making a bunch of changes to their roster, it's possible they missed their window with the group of core guys we've been talking about in this segment. I don't know that they're going to win a Super Bowl with McCaffrey and Kittle and Deebo Samuel. I just don't know. I think they might have missed that chance, honestly.
Yeah, and let's think about it. How are you able to accumulate all of that talent? You've got a quarterback that you're paying like what, $700,000 a year? I can't remember what Brock's making.
9, I think 9.
Yeah, like, so you've got money to spread around, and eventually, I'd assume that they're going to want to pay Brock Purdy. What that number ends up looking like, I don't know. He's up there almost leading the league in passing right now, so it's not like he's some slouch. You start looking at what Tua and Trevor and other guys kind of who got paid recently. Like, are you going to give Brock 50 some odd million? Is he going to settle, take a team friendly deal on the 30-ish, 40-ish million? Like, nobody really knows. And I don't want to be the dramatic guy that says this is the beginning of the end, but you can only hear that voice trying to help you get over the hump, and that voice being Kyle Shanahan. You can only hear that voice so long before it's like, we just can't get there. And unfortunately, the Kansas City Chiefs have your number. I think the Ravens are a better team this year. So even if you happen to make it to the Super Bowl, you got past perhaps Green Bay, you got past the Lions, you got past the Vikings. It's looking tough.
Kyle Shanahan, I forget the exact numbers, but like the wins, the losses, even the Super Bowl losses, like the beginning of Andy Reid's career in Philadelphia, almost nearly perfectly mirror the success and failures that Kyle Shanahan has had so far in San Francisco with the 49ers. I wonder this, kind of a weird thought, but is maybe San Francisco not the place we're going to see Kyle Shanahan win a Super Bowl? I think he's a great coach. I think he's incredible. Does he survive what's about to happen the next couple of years financially? The losses I think are going to accumulate in San Francisco. I think he could get axed, very similar to the way that Andy Reid got fired from Philly, where Philly knew we're getting rid of a good coach, but it's time to move on from him. And we saw Philly in a weird way. They did actually, it worked out for them. They won a Super Bowl without Andy Reid, and Andy Reid leaves and finds better, greener pastures in Kansas City. I wonder if we could see something similar happen for Kyle Shanahan. I don't know where he would go next. I don't know what that looks like, but is it possible 5-6 years from now we're looking at Kyle Shanahan coaching, I don't know, throw out some names, Vegas, maybe Denver, maybe Houston, who knows, wherever you want to put him, somewhere else doing what Andy Reid's doing right now in Kansas City. I don't know. How long does that parallel between Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan continue being real? And does Kyle Shanahan ever make it work with this team? I think he will at some point win a Super Bowl. I just don't know if he's going to do it with the 49ers.
Yeah, you might be right. It might not be with the Niners. It might be time to mutually agree to part ways, maybe after next year. We'll see. We'll see.
I mean, I don't know what the 49ers get out of that, but
yeah, I don't know. My heart does go out to the Niners, but that roster is so beat up on the offensive and defensive side of the football. It's got to be tough in that locker room this year.
Yeah. Kansas City 6-0, and it's been a really weird, interesting 6-0. Like they just beat the 49ers. Patrick Mahomes, 16 for 27 passing, 154 yards, 2 interceptions. He ran for a touchdown, I guess, but like not a clean, good game from Patrick Mahomes. And yet, like, they're 6-0. They're the only undefeated team left in the NFL. What do you make of Kansas City? I actually find them to be really impressive. No matter what happens, they seem to find a way. And I've kind of given up on ever doubting Patrick Mahomes ever again. He just seems like no matter what happens, is it the prettiest? No. But do they win? Dang near every week. What do you make of Kansas City?
Their defense, number one, is excellent.
Yep.
That has enabled them to play this way. But Pat just has this ability to make the right play at the right time, to either get that first down, to extend that drive, to get the touchdown, whatever it needs to be.
Yeah.
He just has an innate ability to help make that happen. And we saw that this week with the scrambling plays. He had a long run for 33 yards, and then he obviously had the touchdown run where he ran over, I think it was Mustafa.
Yeah.
His interceptions, one was batted at the line, the other one Xavier Worthy slipped. So I'd like to think that Pat took better care of the football this game. Those two, to me, just felt a little bit more unfortunate, more so than bad. But I mean, I don't know what else to say. This guy just makes plays, and he to me is kind of like I don't want to get too analogy here, but like he feels like a point guard that just knows when to press. He knows when to slow it down. He just has this great feel for the game and the pace and the momentum and what needs to be done to keep the Kansas City Chiefs in control. And they've won. And like you said, I don't see a world in which you can doubt the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, you've got Andy Reid, you've got Spagnuolo on that defensive side calling things for them. They've got so much continuity and so much faith in each other in those core pieces that whatever is thrown at them, they're battle tested, they're war tested. They've just got it. And there's no other way to say it. Like, this is everything that the Niners wanted to be, right? You're a little bit healthier. You have the guy you want at quarterback. You've got enough weapons around him. But again, that difference is when you start to lose those weapons, Pat just makes the plays. He knows how to find the guys, and Andy Reid knows how to dial it up to squeeze the most out of guys that he can, like Mecole Hardman out of nowhere. You pick up Kareem Hunt, off the street, and he's able to come in and participate. So They're just a team, again, that has so much continuity and faith in themselves that they just never have any doubt that they're going to get it done. Meanwhile, teams are rolling in there all tense, like, it's Kansas City, it's Patrick, we can't make a mistake here. Oh my goodness. And they just roll in like it's another day at the offense. And that's, to me, what kills people more is that those nerves that you have going into that game. And they're just stone cold.
You look ahead at Kansas City's schedule remaining. There's really not. I mean, like they play the Raiders twice. That feels sketchy to me just because the Raiders always seem like they have their number and are pretty dialed in. Once a year, like you see them play Kansas City really well. But Tampa's injured. Buffalo scares me a little bit. The Houston game is tough. I think Pittsburgh's going to play them really well. I think they're a 13-4 team. I mean, like something in that ballpark, 13-4, 14-3. I mean, I've got a lot of confidence. And to me, it's going to come down to Baltimore, Kansas City in the AFC title game again. I mean, it's just going to be, that's the matchup we're kind of looking ahead to, in my opinion. I've learned the same way. I watched LeBron James as he got older, continue to defy expectations, like constantly, to the point where it's like, yeah, don't doubt LeBron James. Just, it makes no sense to try to be first, to be out on LeBron James. Just believe in him until he gives you a reason not to. Right. Kansas City, consistently, whether Marquise Brown is injured, whether Rashee Rice is injured, I saw them win a Super Bowl after getting rid of Tyreek Hill. So, right. Dude, I just can't doubt Kansas City. And I'll say this, I mean, I don't mean to make so many I statements, but the NFL is turning on Kansas City, like their fan base. I mean, the NFL fans are getting really sick of it. I find myself, maybe I don't get along with the everyday person walking down the street. I find myself really rooting for Kansas City to win their third Super Bowl in a row. I think it'd be really cool. It'd be like fun to witness history. Oh my gosh, I'm seeing something happen that's never happened before. I don't hate Kansas City. They're a fun villain. I get it. People love to hate on them, but I want to see them do it. I think it'd be fun to watch them pull it off. Do you hate Kansas City? Do you kind of feel, it seems like there's so much vitriol and people are so tired of them, but I just don't agree with that. I don't share that opinion.
No, you just got to sit back and enjoy greatness. I felt that way about Tom Brady way back in the day. And then started to get later in his career. And then you just sit back and you appreciate what they're able to do. And that's kind of the place that I'm at. And, my previous job, I had the opportunity to work with Pat. So that was really, really cool for me to kind of get an inside look at a few things between the way he prepares with his trainer, all these different things. So I'm always going to be a fan. And a three-peat would be really cool to see, because if that happens, that's probably never happening again.
I have never brought this up because it's you've never brought it up, but you did work with Patrick Mahomes in your past job.
Yeah, I just opened the door to that. Yeah.
What I want to ask is, because our private conversations it's come across from you to me. Hey, Nathan has great admiration for the way Patrick Mahomes approaches things off the field and preparation between seasons and stuff like that. Can you speak to that at all? I won't go much further. I don't want you to, blow up your spot, but yeah, you've been around him a little bit and kind of got an eye look into him that most people that talk about Patrick Mahomes simply have never had. So when you speak about Mahomes, I give it a little bit more weight because you've actually met him.
Yeah, just the way he prepares and the way he goes about life is really impressive. There's nobody that's doing more than he does at any single given moment. You see every time he's playing, the commercials are littered with him in it, whether that's Subway, whether that's Oakley, whether that's Adidas, whether that's Boss with the NFL. Like, he is just anywhere and everywhere, and that's off the field, right? So his whole entire offseason, he's training, he's doing these brand deals, and then obviously he gets in the season, and he's got a wife, he's got 2 kids, he's got 2 dogs. He is just so maniacal about time and how much effort and energy he puts into the things that he wants to be great in his life. And so when you see that kind of at closer to eye level, it's just really, really cool to see.
What I love about Pat is he feels inevitable. 3rd and 18. It's like, well, you can still get it. I've seen him do it a bunch of times.
You're scared.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the Ravens are really, really good. They're 5-2. I think they're going to run into Kansas City at some point. And I think on paper, frankly, Baltimore's a much better team on paper. But that game's going to be close because Mahomes always makes it close. That's just how he's got this like superhuman juggernaut type feel that you're like, well, he's just a little different. And you have to acknowledge that. That's why I don't hate the guy. That's why I don't hate Kansas City, is when you watch him, like, I know I'm watching something that's a little bit special and a little bit different compared to everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seattle beat Atlanta 34-14. I don't have a lot to say, but I know you do. What I want to say first, I thought it was a weird loss by Atlanta. They've been, I think, building momentum, the Atlanta Falcons have. And, for Kirk Cousins to go in this game, have 3 turnovers, well, we can talk about him if you want, but it's a weird loss. We're like, this team is just not as consistent as I want them to be when it comes to their outcomes.
Yeah.
What'd you make of Seattle beating Atlanta?
I thought, number one, it was very impressive for Seattle to be able to go on the road all the way to Atlanta, quite possibly the farthest trip that you can have in the NFL, upper left to the bottom right of your map. And for their defense to show up and play the way that they did, especially in that second half to truly close out that game, I thought it was impressive. Again, like they've got great cover corners that make it hard for guys like Drake London and Darnell Mooney to find their groove. Bijan was able to get going on the ground, and that was positive to see. But what it came down to is just they couldn't get the ball into the end zone, and they kept turning over the football. And that's just the inconsistency that you're talking about. It's those execution details, those small things, and something that I feel like we saw from Kirk maybe in Minnesota, which is what frustrated people so much, was this ability to throw for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. But then the very next game, he gives you 3 turnovers, and it's just so hard. And one thing I want to point out also is the Falcons defense hasn't been as advertised. I think there was a lot of expectation. Again, I think we talked about this last week with some of the free agents they brought in. Obviously, Raheem Morris being a defensive focused head coach, we thought they'd be performing a little bit better. And I'm curious if there's just a lack of consistency across the team. And that, again, that comes from the head coach down, or if they just haven't found their way to gel or mesh yet. I don't know. Like you said, just very weird. Very weird.
Yeah, I don't have answers. I just have questions with Atlanta. I don't know why they're inconsistent. I don't know why the way they played Kansas City earlier this year, they lost that game, but they lose by 5. Their defense played incredible. I was like, I remember being like, wow, this is a really exciting moment. Then they win 3 in a row, and you're like, man, this Falcons team is different. They're figuring it out.
Right.
Then they take a step backward like they did this week against Seattle, and I'm back to being like, I never know what to expect. And frankly, it makes it kind of fun. Like, I really like watching Atlanta football games because I never know what to expect. Like, they're really unpredictable. But that's not the sign of a healthy organization either. It's like, man, why can't we consistently see the same product week to week? And so
No.
the NFC South is the most weird division in football. Carolina's a disaster. The Saints are banged up. They're literally holding open tryouts. The Falcons have the best team by a mile on paper, but they're tied with Tampa. I mean, the game for the division is probably next weekend in Tampa, Atlanta at Tampa, but I don't know what is going to happen. Like, the outcome by the end of the season, I cannot predict at all.
In theory, with the loss of Mike Evans, I think for a number of weeks, I think he might have to go on the IR after seeing the way that he went down with that hamstring. Obviously, no Godwin. You got to give the nod to the Falcons to be able to win that game. But the Bucs also have a great defense. You never know. One defensive touchdown here or there, you swing the momentum, you hit Jalen McMillan over the top, then all of a sudden we got a game. So it's gonna be a coin toss in that division. But I do want to highlight and talk about the Seahawks and this defense that has given up 20 plus points in a number of games. For them to hold the Falcons to 14, for them to do it the way they did to close out the game, even while giving up a 100-yard rusher and not really having an amazing pass rush throughout the game, are they starting to find their defensive stride with Colin McDonald? The offense didn't turn over the football. That was great. And the defense looks to have taken a step in the right direction. We'll see.
You talk about long road trips. Next weekend, Buffalo travels all the way to Seattle. That is going to be a really, really interesting game. You talk about a test for the Seattle defense. Look, Josh Allen's playing great. They just added Amari Cooper. Now, Amari Cooper's not up to speed. Amari Cooper caught a touchdown pass this week, and you literally see Keon Coleman point the route to him. And it's like, well, he is not there yet. So I don't know what we'll see with Amari Cooper yet. But man, I think that game, Seattle hosting Buffalo next week, is one of the highlights of the weekend. We're like, that's going to be really, really fun.
That's going to be a great game, and that's going to tell me a lot about both teams. I know that people are back on the Bills train, and I'm feeling better about the Bills, not that they've acquired Amari Cooper, but you beat the Titans. I'm not
Yeah.
super impressed when you beat the Titans this year. Seahawks a better team. I'm curious, but I will say that this Bills team is the most balanced team we've seen from the Josh Allen era, if you will. It was very heavy pass with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. Towards the end of last year, now we're starting to see a little bit more James Cook feature. Ray Davis looks like he could be a serious star. It looks like he got more of those second reps. There's a lot to like here with Buffalo, but to me, just the jury is still out. And again, more so on that defense. They're playing fundamentally sound, but as far as the talent, we'll see. Again, they very, very well could have lost to the Jets the previous week. And then this week you had the Titans in which you blew them out, which you should have. So, yeah, we'll see.
I got to say this about the Seattle Seahawks. I really like where they're at as an organization. I think Geno Smith, people struggle to embrace Geno Smith. The truth is he's a really good quarterback. Is he the best in the world? No, he's probably actually maybe comparable to like what Matt Hasselbeck was back in the day in the Seahawks uniform, where he's top 15. He's definitely better than most. He's not, if you lose a game, he's not going to be the reason why you're losing a game. And he gives you a stable enough foundation you can really build around him. Would you agree on that, by the way? Do you like Geno? Am I off base there?
No, I like Geno. He will lose you a game. He'll start slinging interceptions like nobody's business. But what he is he's mature and he's a leader. And that means more to a locker room than a guy who can just pass for a bunch of crazy yards, right? We've seen stuff like that before. Aaron Rodgers, hello. But yeah, he's a leader. He's a veteran presence. He's going to do his best to play complementary football. I love the way that DK Metcalf has been featured this year, and prayers up. Hopefully, his knee injury stays minor and he can get back out on the field. Yeah, you're right. I think the Seahawks are in a really good spot. I'm still, not sold on them as a whole, but kind of like the Bucs did a couple weeks ago. Like the Seahawks have a chance here to kind of show me who they are. You've got Buffalo. And then you've got the Rams, and then you got San Francisco. And I'm assuming that, wow, what's his name? Christian McCaffrey is going to be back at that time.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Debo's been able to recover from that pneumonia situation. George Kittle gets a little bit healthier. So we'll see. Yeah, they have an opportunity to, make some waves.
Well, they got the bye week, too, to prepare for the 49ers. So it'll be... Seattle's in a really interesting spot. I want to say this, so I want to dive a little further into Geno Smith. I think what he gives you is time. He's not so bad you have to hurry to replace him. You got a new coach. You're building so many you've got other way more important pieces of your roster you should be focusing on. He's going to buy you time until you can find a quarterback you really fall in love with, but he's not so bad you need to be in a hurry to replace him, I think. I think Geno's kind of a stabilizing force for that Seahawks organization.
That's actually a great way to look at it. There's a lot of times you get that bridge quarterback and it feels like you've got nothing going. You're losing games. You're losing the locker room. Guys don't feel like they're showing up and they have a chance to win a football game. But when you've got a guy like Geno Smith and you've got a general manager who's proven an ability to bring in really, really great talent and have this great base for Colin McDonald to walk into, when you have a guy like Geno and you feel like you can win games because you've got a competent guy back there and some great skill players, that's got to feel really, really good. Like you said, it's a perfect way to buy time, but you can keep buying time. But at a certain point, you got to make a decision. And I'm not sure what that looks like, whether that's going for a big name in free agency or whether you're hoping you're going to steal a quarterback in the, second or third round of the draft. I don't know what that looks like. But they haven't clearly set up a contingency plan or a plan to usher in that next quarterback. He's kind of been the bridge guy for 3 going on 4 years now. When are we going to see what's next?
What they're going to have to do is kind of what Atlanta did with Michael Penix Jr. or maybe what Green Bay did with Jordan Love, which is go get a guy in the first round and frankly, pick a player that's not going to make an impact immediately, but that can sit behind Geno for a year or two and I think learn. I don't think Seattle's ever going to be bad enough to go get a number 1 overall pick.
No.
But maybe someone, actually a name that, like, I don't know how I feel about this at all. I don't really like Shedeur Sanders, but someone like him is going to be available in the middle to end of the first round. You go get him. I believe that.
Shedeur is going to end up going in the top 5.
I don't get why. That doesn't matter. That's not the point of this conversation. You go get someone from like pick 10 to 25, wherever Seattle's drafting, and you make a Jordan Love pick, you make a Michael Penix Jr. pick, you go get a quarterback that you don't need, that has high potential you can build towards your future with. That's the answer. That's the way Seattle's going to get their next quarterback, in my opinion. I don't think you go replace Geno Smith in free agency. It doesn't make any sense. And I think he's playing well enough. They're like, look, we're not in a hurry to make this move. We'll wait till the right opportunity comes knocking at our door, rather than compromising our situation to go pursue a quarterback we don't obviously need. Does that make sense? That's why I think the way to view look at it is he buys you time to be patient with that move.
Yeah, you can be patient all you want. You can sit and wait for opportunity to come knocking, but sometimes opportunity does not come and knock.
Interesting. We talked about Buffalo, so let's lean into them a little bit more. They beat Tennessee 34-10. What I want to talk about, Amari Cooper had 4 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown. Keon Coleman, 4 catches, 125 yards. I thought we saw already Amari Cooper make a bit of an impact. Now, he's not perfect. He ran that route. It was like a bang slant, or what do you call a 5-step slant? Mm-hmm. That or a seam. I don't know. I didn't watch a great video of it, but you see him line up pre-snap, and Keon Coleman literally does the route with his hands, like showing him where to go. So he doesn't know the offense yet, I guess I'm trying to say. He's not fully up to speed, but he already made an impact in my mind. What'd you make of Amari Cooper in one game with Buffalo?
Yeah, he did exactly what we thought. 4 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown. That's what we were talking about last week.
That is literally what you said on the phone call with me, by the way. It's hilarious.
I know. It's I just need to see another week of it again, because it was against the Titans, and that is really, really hard for me, not to necessarily give credit for, but to have a very accurate assessment of how this offense is going to look with Amari Cooper. You just talked about it. They brought him in. He's trying to learn the plays on the go. Next week, it will give us a better idea of how that offense is looking. He's been a great addition already. Just the space that he provides. He makes it harder to stack the box, giving a little bit more room for guys like James Cook. And again, Joe Brady really wants to run the football and establish that. I'm sure that Josh Allen loves to have a functioning run game. And again, like, we're not asking Amari Cooper to be a burner over the top or need, 13 targets and have 9 catches. We just need him to be a sound football player and help Keon Coleman grow. Keon Coleman kind of strikes me as a goofy guy. Can Amari Cooper help teach him how to be a professional wide receiver in the NFL, right? How you watch film, how you approach practice, the details that you pay attention to in your route running, in your film watching, all those little small things. Keon Coleman, I hope he just soaks all of that in, because he's going to be in Buffalo, long after Amari Cooper is.
What you said about Buffalo, which is, hey, that happened against Tennessee. I don't know. I need to see more from them. I think can also be applied to this next team I want to talk about. Philly beat the Giants 28-3. So the Eagles are 4-2. They've won 2 in a row. And in this game, by the way, let's talk about numbers real quick. Saquon Barkley, 17 carries, 176 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Hurts, 10 for 14, 114 yards and a touchdown. I don't trust this performance. Like, we had this conversation kind of privately beforehand. Is Philly doing it or not? I don't know. I really like what Saquon did. I think there's a great clip of him and Nick Sirianni on the sideline. Nick Sirianni does a classy thing, comes up to Saquon Barkley, says, look, you're 13 yards from your career high in rushing. We could leave you in and get more yards and try to break that. Or like, how do you want to approach this? And Saquon goes, I don't care. Put the young guys in. I want to be, I'm not worried about myself. I really like that. I also think it's self-preservation. Let's not risk getting injured. It's not worth the rest of my season. I'm sure there's part of that going on as well. I thought both guys handled that situation exactly how you should. But I don't trust that performance. What'd you make of the Eagles destroying the Giants 28-3?
I kind of feel the same, especially after the Giants the past couple of weeks. It looked like their defense was playing some really, really good football, and that's why I was so intrigued by this matchup. But to have the Philadelphia Eagles come out and have that performance, what a coming home for Saquon Barkley. I think that's really what this night was about. The front seven from the Giants wasn't necessarily performing on par. And, once Saquon got rolling, that was kind of the end of it. Only having to attempt 14 passes. Yeah, it was let's just call it what it was. It was an ass whooping. a better team with a better roster just kind of beat up a team that doesn't have a great roster kind of top to bottom. Not a lot else to say on it, but this Philadelphia team is going to have some opportunities to prove their worth here in the next couple of weeks.
The Giants play at Pittsburgh next week.
Yikes.
Dude, that is going to be, I think, a bloodbath. I'm really hoping for that. I really like Pittsburgh.
How many turnovers for the Giants next week? How many?
More than 2.
More. I absolutely. I think 3 is the minimum.
3 is the
I think it's
dude.
2 interceptions and at least 1 fumble.
Maybe all 3 from Daniel Jones.
They're very possible. And did you see how upset he was about being pulled in the fourth quarter, looking for a spark? I totally get that, but it did not seem like him and Dayball were on the same page about how this was going down.
I think Brian Daboll's done with Daniel Jones. Like you hear the way he talks about him and talks about how we need a bit of explosive play from our quarterback position. Like, dude, Brian Daboll wants to get out of the Daniel Jones contract and find a new guy.
He's pulling the Sean Payton. This is what Sean Payton did last year. He would just get up at the podium, take these subtle jabs at the quarterback, and let you know that he is ready to move on from him. And it's kind of a cop-out, if we're being honest. You got the guy in the building, coach him. I know you don't want to, but coach him, stand up there, defend your guy.
But I think Brian Daboll is realizing, hey, I got to play the politics game here, because if I don't push the blame on Daniel Jones, I'm out. I may not ever get an opportunity to have the quarterback I want because I might get fired before I even get there.
True. That's very fair.
But again, back to Philly, I don't trust. Like the next 4 games for the Eagles are at Cincinnati, then the Jaguars in Philly, then at Dallas, and then Washington. We're going to learn a lot about this team in the next 4 games. I'm in no hurry at all to praise Philadelphia. Let's see them earn it on the field before we give them their flowers, in my opinion.
Yeah, and they're playing some weak defenses too. So if they're not putting up points and honestly kind of winning in dominant fashion here, it's going to be concerning.
Yeah. Let's talk about one that I don't know how much we need to talk about this. I want to acknowledge it did happen. It is what it is. The Browns played the Bengals. The Browns lost to Cincinnati 21-14. But the bigger storyline from this game, other than, I guess, Cincinnati, they're 3-4. They're kind of climbing their way back into maybe getting to 500. Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson tore his Achilles, is out for the year. It's just I don't know how to feel about this. I felt really bad for Deshaun Watson crying as he gets carted off the field. Like, you just feel bad for the human being. You're like, oh, that sucks. He's getting booed by his own fan base. And no matter how you feel about Deshaun Watson, I've said a lot of things about him that, obviously were not in his favor. It's just an uncomfortable moment to watch. A guy getting booed as he gets carted off the field with a torn Achilles. Obviously, like, you watch a video, like, that guy's Achilles is done.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk too much about the booing and whatever. I think fans are really frustrated with Deshaun Watson's contract, and he's had lots of moments to grab the respect of the fan base and ingratiate himself to Cleveland. He hasn't done that. I thought the human element sucked, but even worse than this is the Browns organization is crippled by this contract.
Yeah.
Hurt or not, he's going to get paid. It's a guaranteed contract. What do you make of the Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson getting injured?
The first thing is never ever wish on the downfall, injury, or death of anybody in this world. I know that it can be really easy to do that, and we get passionate, especially when we're talking about our sports teams that we love, or just other people in your life. That's just not something that you want to do. That weighs heavier on your own heart than it does on them, and it's just not a healthy thing to do. That's the first thing I want to say. Second is, yeah, unfortunate he ruptured his Achilles, and as somebody who has also ruptured their Achilles, they did a couple years ago. It's not a fun injury to come back from. It's going to take time for him to come back. He might not be ready for the start of next year. But at the same time, it doesn't really matter. His cap hit next year and the year after, I think it's like $72 million. So even if he doesn't play, you got to find somebody to be your quarterback next year. And now you have the same problem. You got to go find somebody super duper cheap to come and play because Deshaun Watson's taking up that cap room. There's going to be guys that you can't bring in to pay on the both offensive and defensive side of the football. You're just in purgatory. The Browns have truly screwed themselves with this contract. Correct me if I'm wrong. This contract is fully guaranteed, correct?
It is. Yep.
I mean, unless you sit down with Deshaun and he's having a good rehab and you say, hey, How can we talk about restructuring this contract? Which I don't think he's going to do, especially now that he's gotten injured, right? That's why you get the guaranteed money. So if something like this happens, you're taken care of. It was a bad contract in the first place. I feel for Deshaun the athlete, not Deshaun the human being. And I feel for the Browns fan base that is going to have to endure more pain.
So here's a silly thing, but it's true. I declared myself a Steelers fan earlier in this episode.
So crazy.
Part of that I really like, and I really trust the Steelers ownership. If I'm going to be a fan of a team, I have to trust that the team isn't going to emotionally screw me over. The Steelers organization would never give that contract to someone like Deshaun Watson. They just would never do that. Like that, bad ownership is what makes being a fan of a team really difficult. I was a Mariners fan when I was a kid. Their ownership is fucking awful. And at 11 years old, I was like, I'm not doing this. It's like an emotionally abusive relationship. I'm out. I have no power here. I'm emotionally invested in this team that just really makes bad decision after bad decision. So that being said, I can't imagine being a Browns fan where like your ownership has made so many bad decisions throughout the course of your time following this team, from the Johnny Manziel contract to, just move after move, getting rid of Baker Mayfield, signing, Deshaun Watson to this crazy contract. Like, how? I get it. You're from Cleveland, dog pound for life. Like, that's your team. And you probably can't separate from that. Like, emotionally, if you're invested in, and that's kind of why, like with the Steelers, I realize I'm just emotionally invested in a team. I can't deny it anymore. Like, you don't really get to pick who your favorite team is, I think, honestly, true, if you do it right.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine Browns fans can't separate emotionally from their team, because even if you stop watching, you find out they lost, you're going to be sad. You find out when you're going to be happy 20 years from now. It's just how it is with being having a favorite team. But man, like, I just feel really bad for Browns fans who have to endure, frankly, terrible ownership for years. It's awful, and I feel so bad for them.
Yeah, you look at the Browns, you look at the Raiders for what it's worth, you look at the Jets, you look at the Jaguars, although the Jaguars are still a weird one to me. It just, things happen from the top down. The culture and the standard that's set at the top trickles all the way down through the decision to hire a head coach, and the coach and who they decide to hire as their general manager, and the team and the players that they bring in. Like, it all comes from the top down. Bad run franchises are always going to yield bad results.
I think that does not get more highlighted by what happened between Washington and Carolina, actually. You look at Washington, they had a bad owner who sold the team. Dan Snyder's gone. Ever since then, Washington has done so many good things right. Washington is on a new trajectory. On the flip side, Carolina got a new owner, David Tepper, who has made mistake after mistake after mistake, and it played out that way on the field. Washington beat Carolina this week 40-7.
Ooh,
One organization's got an infusion of young talent and is poorly run, and the other one has an infusion of young talent and looks fantastic. The Washington Commanders, even with Jaden Daniels, their Heisman Trophy winning number 2 overall pick quarterback, getting hurt with a rib injury, which, by the way, let's be clear, Jaden Daniels, not a major injury. He's week to week. I really hope Jaden Daniels comes back. Actually, next week they play Caleb Williams and the Bears, and I want to see the number 1 pick play the number 2 pick. But without Jaden Daniels, they just put on a show. Marcus Mariota looked awesome. He was 18 for 23 passing, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns. I loved watching Marcus Mariota do well. Did you feel that way too?
I loved it, every second of it. Man, being a Duck fan and seeing Marcus Mariota get drafted by the Titans, feel like he was never used correctly.
Yeah.
Did a backup thing in Oakland for a year, and then who was he with after that? The Falcons, and had to deal with the Arthur Smiths and the Arthur Blank situation. Just, I feel so happy for Marcus Mariota. And again, like, either way, next week you're getting a Heisman Trophy winner matchup. Let's not forget that. Marcus Mariota's got himself a Heisman Trophy. Don't forget that. Go Ducks. But yeah, it was really great to see 18 for 23. That's so efficient. And he was throwing on the run. He was throwing from the pocket. And he just looked comfortable. He looked relaxed. He didn't look overly stressed out. And for him to come in and step into that situation, and again, I know it was only the Carolina Panthers, but so it just makes me really, really happy for him personally. Do you think, I got to ask you this question, and you might be going there already. Do you think he has the opportunity to be a like the next Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold, somebody who's getting that next opportunity or a final opportunity?
Yes. I mean, we've seen so many times. Baker Mayfield's on his fourth team, and it works. Sam Darnold's on his fourth team, and it's working. Like, I don't think you can hold your first time in the NFL against you. I think Zach Wilson's career isn't over, in my opinion, either. Honestly, like, you play with for a terrible organization and bad coaches, it's really hard to, succeed. Um, this was on my mind a lot recently because I saw a shout out to Max Brown, former USC quarterback, former Skyline High School quarterback. I beat Skyline in the playoffs. It was awesome. Max Brown put out a reel on Instagram the other day talking about like the lost generation of quarterbacks. So the quarterbacks were in their 40s and they're kind of leaving, but the quarterbacks that should be in their late 30s, that generation's kind of not worked out. The Andrew Lucks, the RG3, the Marcus Mariota, and part of that is Mariota was forced to run an offense that just did not work to his skill set. He went to Tennessee, and when Mariota came to the NFL, it was a very different environment than what we're seeing now with Jaden Daniels, with Caleb Williams, with Lamar Jackson. The NFL has really changed to realizing, hey, if we're going to work with young quarterbacks, Jake Locker, another quarterback who even went to Tennessee, by the way, and failed. We saw quarterbacks get forced to run offenses that didn't work to their skill set, and they failed way too often. So the NFL, the self-awareness thing, we got to adapt to college systems and build offenses that work for the guys rather than trying to make our quarterbacks work to our systems. And Marcus Mariota, I would have loved to see him as a rookie in today's NFL with the philosophies you see currently, because I think he would have been great. And I think now we're seeing, hey, in Cliff Kingsbury's offense, dude looks awesome. Oh, I don't think that's a coincidence. So no, I think it's totally possible. Now, one thing worth noting, he was given a shot in Atlanta with Arthur Smith. I don't know that that's a fair. I don't think Atlanta was trying to build an offense that worked to Marcus Mariota's skill set. So I don't think you can hold that opportunity against him either.
And that's what surprised me as well, because Arthur Smith was the offensive coordinator in Tennessee before Mariota ultimately got benched for
Tannehill.
Yeah, for Tannehill. So when they had that reunion in Atlanta, we thought maybe things would look a little bit different. That wasn't the case. I think two things can be true. One, the offense wasn't quite set up for Mariota in Atlanta. And the second being Arthur Smith wasn't a head coach. And after seeing Russell Wilson's performance, I'm starting to get a soft spot for Arthur Smith that maybe he just wasn't a good head coach and maybe he is a good coordinator. So I'm not going to close the door on him yet. I've said a lot of things, as you would put it, not in his favor throughout the summer and this early part of the fall, but I'm willing to open that door back up for him in Pittsburgh, your now favorite team, and see how things shake out. But back to Mariota. He's getting to play in an offense from Cliff Kingsbury, a little more spread offense, some things maybe perhaps he did in college at the University of Oregon, right? A little more of that college style offense. So really, really excited for him, and hopefully there's another opportunity knocking for him for somebody who's looking for a bridge quarterback. Maybe if Tua can't hold it together, do the Dolphins make a call? I don't know.
The couple places I could see Mariota fitting in really interestingly. Number one, the ninth island. Playing in Las Vegas, he would be welcomed with open arms. They would sell so many Marcus Mariota jerseys.
The ninth island?
Yeah, that's Hawaii's ninth island.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I was Vegas. So off on that. Yeah, they got a big poly presence there. But he was already in Vegas.
As a backup behind Derek Carr.
True.
I think a different situation with Aiden O'Connell. I don't know. So I think the Raiders are interesting.
For his sake, he doesn't go to the Raiders. Interesting, but I hope for his sake he doesn't.
I think the Rams are really interesting for Marcus Mariota. I think Kansas City's another opportunity. We've seen Carson Wentz there right now. I think you go sit behind Mahomes. You're available if they need him. So I think the Rams, though, are in flux right now. There's a lot of conversations happening. Could Matthew Stafford get traded to maybe the Giants next year? Something like that. I think that the Rams could have an opening next year. I think that the Raiders could have an opening. I also look at Miami as a great spot. I think him and Tua would be just fun on the same roster regardless. So I think it's possible Mariota has a resurgence. I just don't know where it would happen. I also don't want to. It's one game. We saw Andy Dalton
one game
great
against
game
the Panthers.
Like remember when Andy Dalton came in and had one great game and played incredible? Like, one game is not a full season. It's not a full resurgence of your career. But more than anything, what I really wanted to get at was I just hate that Marcus Mariota, I think really honestly wasn't given a fair shot in the NFL.
Yeah.
He was asked to do things that didn't work to his skill set. And I would have loved to see him just in a different environment. Again, that generation of quarterbacks, Mariota, RG3, Andrew Luck, Jake Locker, Christian Ponder, like all these quarterbacks. Now, Christian Ponder's not a great example because he wasn't very good, but that generation of quarterbacks is out of the NFL mostly and not doing well. And it's because the NFL just didn't treat them properly, in my opinion. And so it was just cool to see Mariota succeed, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. I loved watching him win and do well. And I don't know if he's going to play next week or not. I kind of hope he doesn't because I wanted to see Jaden against Caleb Williams. But
Yeah.
the more Mariota, the better. And I remember when I was in high school, we built our offense at Skyview High School around what Oregon did with Chip Kelly. Like our entire system was literally just cut-ups of Oregon's offense with Marcus Mariota. I watched so much Mariota film in high school. And I have great admiration for him because of those days, watching what he did and being just wowed by his ability constantly on film.
Yeah, and like you're talking about next week here, transitioning more to the Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams kind of matchup here. This Chicago defense is real. It's going to be the realest defense that they've seen this year. I know that the Ravens are a good defense, but they haven't been playing to the level that we've seen the Ravens play historically. This Chicago defense is no joke. And Jaden Daniels, if you don't go out of bounds, if you don't slide and protect yourself, those ribs are going to hurt a little bit more. So I just want him to be careful. But you're right. What a great matchup that has the potential to be.
When you also talk about a follow-up, Mariota had one great game. You have another great game and you beat the crap out of the Chicago defense, I'll look at you a little differently. I'll go, oh, no, that's legit. That's really good.
Totally.
Detroit beat Minnesota 31-29 this week. Both teams are now 5-1. I think what really stands out to me, and by the way, they won with a last-second field goal. It was really fun. Watching this game live was incredible. But Jared Goff is rolling. Jahmyr Gibbs had a great game. But Jared Goff, 3 incompletions on the day. Like, the Detroit Lions are so dang good. I mean, they make it look easy week to week. I think they're the front runner in the NFC, in my opinion. I think Minnesota's right there with them. They challenge them. Obviously, it gets a close game, but to me, Detroit's the best team in the NFC by kind of a wide margin, or at least they're number one, and then everyone else is below them. You can have the debate from there, but to me, Detroit's the best team in the NFC. What do you make of this game, Detroit beating Minnesota?
To have that sort of performance, down Aiden Hutchinson, it was just awesome. Even Montgomery went out for a little bit too.
Yep.
Before he came back, so he had to feature Gibbs. Yeah, they're just deep, is what they are. They're deep. They're talented. They have that belief I was talking about that Kansas City has. Detroit has that belief too that they can win these football games. One thing I will say is that game was very close, and I don't feel like the Vikings played their best game. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't feel super clean and crisp from them. So to see this come down to the nail biter that it was, a game-winning field goal, this matchup to me could go either way the next time that they play, which is going to be exciting that this all of a sudden this conference is just through the roof with incredible talent, or this division is. We said it. Detroit is incredibly deep, but now they're going to be challenged again here. Jameson Williams looks like he might be in a little bit of trouble with some performance enhancement. That's going to give you a little bit of a ding. But man, they're just good. They're just good.
Let's give credit. I wanted to say this because Eric Woodyard is a Detroit Lions reporter who I follow, who I love. He will not be the only voice you hear reporting this, but he was the one I saw first, and I think he deserves credit here. He reported that Jameson Williams is facing a 2-game suspension for violating the NFL's performance-enhancing drug policy or substance policy. So no Jameson Williams for 2 games, basically, is the gist of that. What I want to say, Detroit, Minnesota is a rivalry brewing, in my opinion. They played once this year. They play again the very last game of the regular season. And that could be a game to settle the division, in my opinion, maybe even settle first place.
That could be the number 1 seed, in the NFC.
And whether, if they play, they're going to play again. I think they could play a third time too. I think this is going to be a matchup we see a lot throughout the year. Green Bay is also competitive. The Bears are competitive. This division, the NFC North, is really, really good. But I think the two best teams in the NFC I've seen this year are Minnesota and Detroit. I think Detroit is better, but it's really close and really interesting in my opinion.
Yeah, it is. And here's my deal: is if Goff can keep playing like this again, 22 of 25, it's going to be hard for them to lose a football game. And then on the flip side, Sam Darnold was 22 of 27. That's really good too.
Yeah.
So again, great response from the Lions defense to do just enough to kind of keep them in striking distance, and obviously ultimately win the football game. If you're Minnesota, to me again, I feel like Minnesota let this game like kind of get out of their hands, if that makes sense. I felt like for a large in part, they were kind of in control, and then all of a sudden, Jahmyr Gibbs gets hot. He has a big run. It was it was just a back and forth classic game. I think, a lot of us have probably seen the screenshot of the box score now between those two teams. It was like a yard or two, and it was almost perfectly even down the line. And like you said, that last game of the year is going to be really, really exciting.
No, I think these are the two best teams in the NFC. I think what's weird about the NFC, there's no I don't think Seattle's really a Super Bowl contender. I don't think Philly's that impressive to me. Atlanta's been really in and out. Like, there's no real person in the East or the North, or sorry, the East or the West or the South. It's going to come down to the NFC North, and all four teams are some of the best teams in the NFC. With Chicago and having a great defense, Detroit's probably the best team in the NFC. Minnesota's right behind them. Green Bay can beat any one of those teams I just mentioned. Like,
yeah,
the NFC North is fascinating. It's kind of a bloodbath, and I think going to be the deciding factor on who is the number one seed in the NFC.
And those teams got really good, really quick. Really good, really, really quick. Kevin O'Connell, this is his third year there, right?
Yeah.
Incredible. And that was after, going to the playoffs. And then the next year kind of faltered. Kirk Cousins got hurt. And then boom, you got Sam Darnold. Now you're rolling. Justin Jefferson's healthy and you're rolling. Detroit, a little bit of a slower build, but they've been really good for the last 3 years. The Packers, moving off of Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love struggles last year. Then he hits his stride. And now all of a sudden this offense can't do anything other than throw passing touchdowns. It's insane. And then this Matt Eberflus defense that has been great for the past couple of years. Maybe now finally you have an offense that is functioning. Like, again, this happened so quick for this division. Real quick, can I talk about something with the Bears and Shane Waldron?
Yeah.
I was a little bit skeptical of him to start the year and wasn't positive about, his ability as a play caller or play designer. But it sounds like they're just having powwows and designing plays together. And I love that about him and his approach to this team. Is like, hey, I'm not going to shove an offense down your throat that's not working for you guys. And we've seen a change in how DeAndre Swift is used, DJ Moore is used, Rome is used, what Caleb is looking at, and having an offensive coordinator who is confident in the schemes that they've set up, but then also malleable. He's like, hey, if this isn't working for us, let's figure out something that does. And the maturity from the players to go to him to say, hey, this isn't working for us. That seems like a really, really healthy environment that earlier in the year I was out on. I didn't think it was going to be good, but now it's starting to work out, and I think that's really unique.
It's rare to listen to your player feedback that way.
Yeah, very rare. But it appears to be working. And again, they didn't necessarily beat the most talented football teams, but you get that kind of momentum and kind of mojo, there's no telling.
No, Caleb Williams on that last game, 4 touchdowns, was 23 for 29 passing. Like, he really, I thought, settled in in a really nice way. Can we go back to Detroit actually for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
First of all, I like what you just said about Shane Waldron. I want to be very clear. Like, that's why I brought you onto the show. You add that element. Like, you just really make the show better, in my opinion. So I'm really glad for that.
Thanks.
Jared Goff was traded for Matthew Stafford. And, I guess let's back up. When the Rams traded Jared Goff to Detroit, the trade was sold to us as, hey, Matthew Stafford is being traded to the Rams for a first-round pick and Jared Goff. It wasn't Jared Goff and a first-round pick. It was a first-round pick and a quarterback that may or may not be there very long. Like, when Jared Goff went to Detroit, for real, I didn't believe he was going to be their quarterback for very long. I thought, like, he's part of the trade.
The objective was just to get Goff out of the building to let Stafford have his breathing room.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, and I thought that first round pick maybe eventually was going to be used to go get another quarterback or something. Like I thought he was like more along the lines of a Teddy Bridgewater or someone who was going to be there a little bit, not quite work out and move on.
Geno Smith, if you will.
Sure. It's turned out actually that Jared Goff's playing like one of the best quarterbacks in football, actually. Like he's really anchored that team and become the face of the franchise like none other. And man, I find myself not only rooting for Jared Goff, like we saw Matthew Stafford go to the Rams and win a Super Bowl. I think it'd be incredible to see Jared Goff win a Super Bowl with Detroit. But beyond that, he's really made me believe he can. It's not just like I'm rooting for him blindly. I go, no, I look at him, I'm like, dude, he's playing unbelievable football. Like I think he actually can win a Super Bowl in Detroit. And I did not anticipate that a couple of years ago when he was sent over there. That change is crazy. I just really got to give a shout out to Jared Goff and what he's done and the way he's played and mastered this offense. I'm really sad because I think it's going to come to an end with Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, almost inevitably leaving to get a head coaching job after this year. They already kept him one more year than I think they maybe thought they would. And if this is how it ends, it's beautiful to see because it's just working so well. And I'm almost wondering, like, can you pitch Ben Johnson on, we'll pay you even more? Like, what do you want? What's your number? How can we keep you in this building? Because it's going so well. And you hate to see that pair separate because they're a joy to watch, coach and quarterback together every week.
Yeah, last 5 games, he's at 80% completion percentage.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
I think they have
in the NFL. Are you kidding me?
I think they've got more touchdowns as an offense than he has incompletions in the last 5 games.
I think I saw something crazy like that. Yeah, it's ridiculous. They're playing at such a high level.
Let's shift in the NFC North now to Green Bay. The Packers beat Houston 24-22. The Packers beat Houston 24-22. The Packers are now 5-2. This was a big win, in my opinion, because it made me go, oh, wow. Like, don't forget about Green Bay. They're still right there in the NFC North. They're maybe the third best team in the entire NFC. Their defense is playing great. They did some really good stuff, kind of shutting down CJ Stroud this week. And then Jordan Love is really gaining my respect. You know, we saw Malik Willis come in and play really well. And the narrative, if you're kind of a casual, will say, was like, oh, they're better with Malik Willis. It's like, no. Jordan Love came right back and shut that narrative exactly down. This Packers team is really good. What do you do with the NFC North? They're all 4 teams feel like they can make the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you do here, but thinking about this game in particular, the Houston defense just did not hold up there at the end. You just couldn't give up a field goal. But I want to go to CJ Stroud here. They burned, I think, close to 6.5 minutes off the clock on their final drive and were unable to score a touchdown that really would have put the game away, right? Because now Green Bay's got to go down and they've got to score, right? They can't just kick a field goal to win the game. And I think that's a massive difference. And I also want to talk about this sophomore slump a little bit here that I was talking about with CJ Stroud. Some teams are starting to figure out what CJ Stroud likes to do. And he's had a few, I don't want to call them stinker games this year, but a few games where you don't quite see him on target or he doesn't look 100% comfortable. And I know that this week in particular, it could be, they didn't have Nico Collins. That changes your offense drastically. But there's still plenty of offensive, skill positions out there or on there. Oh, wow. There's plenty of offensive skill players on that team to more than make up for Nico Collins. You had Mixon have over 100 yards on the ground. CJ just looked, I don't know if lost is the word. He just didn't look like he was seeing things very well. And you called it out here. Green Bay's defense has been playing lights out. So I'm curious how much is one, how much was the other. But yeah, CJ just didn't look very sharp.
I actually, it's interesting. I think this is a case specific thing, right? So against Chicago, he had not his best game. That's a really good defense. They lose to Minnesota, he gets kind of shut down. They lose to Green Bay. I got to be honest. The sophomore slump thing is something I really disagree with you on, where I think he's played it at many times way better than last year. Like against New England, not New England, but he looked really comfortable and did some stuff. Like he threw an out route to Stephon Diggs where I was like, that's incredible. He threw a ball that was a touchdown where I was like, it's effortless. And maybe there have been some low moments, but I think overall CJ Stroud has really solidified himself to me being, oh, this kid's me for a long time. And I think frankly looks better this year than last year. To the point, like not every game. There've been highs and lows, but
Yeah.
there've been moments where I'm like, man, they could lose Bobby Slowick and he's going to be okay because he's just really picking up the NFL at a high enough level. So I it just really depends on what game you want to watch because you watch some games and he's years beyond what he did last year, and then you watch other moments and you're like, man, this defense in particular has really got his number and
Yeah.
challenging him. So it's just been hot and cold for him. I don't want to completely throw you under the bus and disagree with you, but there have been moments where I'm like, wow, he looks incredible too, that I think are worth
Yeah.
noting.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about a couple weeks ago. There's some throws that he makes that are just unbelievable off platform or just great location, right? So maybe we need to, not we, because this is my take here. Maybe I need to pull back the sophomore slump take, but I feel like I've seen more of this.
Yeah.
Last year, I
Highs
felt
and
like I
lows.
saw a little bit more of this. Yeah, I feel like I'm seeing a little more variability, even from drive to drive, quarter to quarter with CJ Stroud than I saw last year, where I felt like there was a little more confidence, a little bit more. I don't even know how you want to say it. It just didn't seem as up and down as last year. And maybe that's just because last year everything caught us off guard. So everything was trending in the right direction. And maybe, I'm looking at this through too much of a microscope here because I think his completion percentage is still high. He still got plenty of touchdowns. He's low on the interception side. So he's having a good season. Let's be very clear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's it. It just seems a little more erratic's not quite the word. It just seems a little less predictable from CJ Stroud week to week.
Well, I'll say this. I think part of what's going on for you is expectations are really high for CJ Stroud, right?
They got very high for CJ Stroud, yeah.
Because they're 5-2. He looks way better than Trevor Lawrence. Like, it's not even close how much better and more comfortable he looks than Trevor Lawrence. So I think if your expectations were sky high, you've seen some low moments you didn't expect. But I think if you just step back and remove the expectations, you go, man, CJ Stroud's in a great spot. And the next 3 games, they play the Colts, then the Jets, and then Detroit. They're 5-2 right now. They're probably, I don't know, 6-3 at the end of that stretch. 5-4 seems really low. I don't think they're going to lose to the Colts and the Jets. I think they probably lose to Detroit, but there's a shot they win that game too. I mean, they could be 7-2 in 3 games from now. So what would that be? 8-2 in 3 games from now. So
yeah.
I don't count Houston out. I think they're still a contender in the AFC. I think they might even be. This is a big statement. I think they're probably the 3rd best team behind Kansas City and Baltimore. And maybe I'm just crazy. I think Steelers are in the mix as well. I think Steelers Houston be a really fun game. But I don't discount Houston at all. I think they're really talented. They play good defense at times, and they play Kansas City on December 21st. That's going to be a really interesting litmus test to see where they stand because they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to win their division. Can they hang with the Baltimore or Kansas City is really the question. I think they're about the same level as Buffalo right now, to be honest. A team they beat 23-20.
Yeah, I could see that. I think your analysis is right there. It's not a sophomore slump. There's just a little bit more inconsistency than we feel like we should see from CJ Stroud. But nonetheless, he's great. On the flip side with Jordan Love, I think we're just going to have to get used to him throwing interceptions. He's going to let the ball fly. What do you think about Jordan Love? He just cuts it loose for good or for worse.
The context I want to add to the Jordan Love conversation is this, man. I remember when the Packers drafted Jordan Love, and the anger, the confusion, and I said it when they drafted him. That's a genius pick. I love that. They're looking for the future. They're planning ahead. Look at where Aaron Rodgers is right now, and look at where Jordan Love is right now. Jordan Love's 5-2. Now, he was out for a game or two. I guess 2 games, but still, they're 5-2. Right. Aaron Rodgers is 2-5, and that move couldn't have been better. Jordan Love isn't perfect. I think he's still making strides to get better week to week, but he's right up there with one of the top guys in football, man. I really think that he got paid like a franchise quarterback. He deserves some money. I don't know where the season's going to go for them, but I've got no concerns about Jordan Love at all. Yeah, he throws interceptions. He's also winning. It's not like, you know what I mean?
That's what I'm getting at. Like, just get used to seeing 1 or 2 picks in the box score, but he's also going to have probably 2, 3, or 4 touchdowns on any given game. He just lets it fly. He cuts it loose. He's got
as
a
the
lot
years
of
go
faith
on,
in his arm talent.
that can get cut down too, right? I think interceptions will not linger forever. He's just going to get better and better. But you're right, because he's got an
Never
incredible arm.
cut
He's
down
got the
for Brett
ability to
Favre.
he can make any throw, dude. And that ability open for Jordan Love is a little different for someone like him than when I was playing quarterback, right? He makes throws that I would have never even have attempted in my life. Now, obviously, he's an NFL quarterback. I would not. But my point is like, let's say Mac Jones is a better example. Mac Jones doesn't have the same level of open that Jordan Love does. Like
Right.
they're in the pocket and Jordan Love is making throws that Mac Jones would never even attempt. And so with that confidence and that ability comes a little more aggression. And he's got to figure that out, that balance. But the interceptions don't bother me if you're 5-2 and you're winning. And so I got really not a concern in the world for Jordan Love. I think he's playing great. And every little interception, by the way, is an opportunity to take note, see it on film, and do differently in the future. So I just, as long as they're winning, who cares?
Amen.
Let's talk about Drake Maye real quick, and then we'll talk about college after that. But Drake Maye started his second ever game in the NFL. They lost to the Jaguars 32-16 in London. However, I thought Drake Maye himself did some really good stuff. He was 26 for 37 passing, 276 yards, 2 touchdowns. And the key here is no turnovers on the day. And we talked about Jordan Love. Actually, I wrote this down on Sunday watching Sunday morning, 6 a.m. the game starts. I think the skill set for Drake Maye is actually very similar to Jordan Love.
Interesting.
Great arm, can make every throw, can run a little bit. Not the fastest guy in the world, but definitely can extend a play here and there. I think the skill set with Jordan Love and Drake Maye is almost identical, honestly. And the field is just totally wide open. We had Drake Maye at quarterback. He can make every throw. Like the upgrade from, we talked about this last week, but the upgrade from Mac Jones to Drake Maye from a talent standpoint is crazy. And even from Jacoby Brissett to Drake Maye, they're able to do way more. There's a throw down the left sideline to Keyshawn Boutte where you're like, dang, that's a beautiful throw down the sideline that I don't think guys in the past who played quarterback recently for New England have been able to make. He's a good athlete, got a great arm. He beat the blitz and threw a touchdown where they blitzed him. He throws to the flat, found his hot route. So my point is he's hanging in the pocket and relaxed and beating a blitz, throwing the football. I think Drake Maye has got it all figured out. That's maybe not the right way to put that. I guess what I'm saying is if you're a Patriots fan and you're 1-6, it's a good 1-6 because your draft pick's going to be high. You got the right quarterback. Does he have it all figured out? Like I said, no, but he's going to get better and figure it out. And I've got a lot of confidence they've got the right person in that spot. And I like that they sat him too. I think sitting probably benefited him. I don't know that he'd be the same guy if he started week 1 as where he is now, but I've been really very impressed with Drake Maye through 2 games. Like, wow, he's really looking really good. Would you agree?
Yeah, I've been impressed as well. And to me, it's less about the stats. It's just more about the eye test. Like you said, he's standing back there and throwing the football. He's got the size, he's got the look, he's got the arm. And I know that doesn't always translate, but from his first start last week to this week, he didn't turn the ball over. Right? He had the 2 interceptions plus the fumble, and this time around, he's taking better care of the football. He throws 2 touchdowns, and granted, it was against the Jaguars. But again, this is a rookie stepping in with very, very limited weapons. He was the team's co-leading rusher with 18 yards. He's getting no help out there. And so I just thought it was impressive to see him literally shoulder the load of that offense, keep the game face on, and play football.
I want to tell you something. I broke down the film and I thought about making a video. I ran out of time. My job has been pretty busy and very stressful, actually. I just didn't get to it. I've got the film on my computer, like all cut up though. And I watched every play from last week and this week. And I'm still flirting with the idea of maybe doing a video at some point. I don't know. And maybe I might just keep kicking the can down the road, wait till the year is over and then do a full film analysis of Drake Maye. But I broke down the film from week 1 and there were a lot of moments where in the pocket, pressure's in his face and he took his eyes down and started to run rather than simply just sliding in the pocket. And it was really frustrating. It's like if you just hang in the pocket, there's a guy coming open over the middle, but you dropped your eyes and thought about the rush. Week 1, he made a couple throws early that were like really uncharacteristic, high airmailing throws, didn't look comfortable. And then in the pocket, the right tackle, left tackle got beat multiple times. He had no chance. And then he started taking his eyes down. In the second week, he didn't do that. I feel like he actually got better from his first start to his second start, more comfortable in the pocket, almost like he watched the film, saw the mistakes, went, dang it, I can't do that, and then didn't do that in his second start. man, that's everything you want. You want to see a guy learn from the past and get better. I know they're 1-6. I know they lost, but Drake Maye, just from his standpoint, is doing some really good stuff and getting better week to week. We're only 2 games in, but it's encouraging to shed that habit after one game is really impressive to me.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Drake Maye. I really think he's their guy. And again, like you said, the eye test, his ability really encourages me because even Tom Brady, God bless Tom Brady, right? He was never the best athlete. He'd never had the best arm. This is probably the most talented quarterback they've had since Drew Bledsoe. I know Cam Newton would take issue with that. The version of Cam Newton we saw in New England wasn't.
I don't count his stop.
Well, he also wasn't his best, right? I think Drake Maye is the most talented quarterback we've seen wear a New England jersey since Drew Bledsoe. And that's very, very exciting. Like they found another one, I think, another franchise quarterback. And it's you got to feel good if you're a Patriots fan. I really believe that.
Keep him healthy, keep him protected, get him some weapons.
Yeah. Yeah. But to have frankly, a left tackle and right tackle that let you down in your first start, just getting horribly beat, it'd be really easy to lose trust in those guys, to take every snap and kind of just to start seeing things that aren't there, not trusting your offensive lineman. And he didn't do that. Like Sam Darnold's quote, "I'm seeing ghosts." It's not exactly what Sam Darnold meant, but when you start feeling things that aren't there because you just don't trust your right and left tackle, he didn't allow the failures in the first start to influence his second start. And that's just, I can report that's really, really huge.
So the Patriots are going to have a pretty high draft pick. Are you going weapon or are you going offensive line?
Wide receiver.
You think so?
Yeah. I don't know which receiver, but I think, the line needs help too. You need help. You need a lot of pieces, and Gerard Mayo would even tell you, like, we got a lot. It's going to take years to figure this out. And maybe that's wrong. Maybe if you can get a left tackle, you go do it, and you spend your second and third round pick on receivers. But you need weapons and you need an offensive line. I think your first 3 picks in the draft have to be on the offensive side of the football. But maybe you go trade for a receiver. Maybe you go get someone in free agency. You go get T. Higgins and you get draft a left tackle. But you need a lot of help. But I actually prefer, if for Drake Maye's sake, a rookie wide receiver can make an impact immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Some tackles can make an impact immediately. Maybe it's better to go get a veteran tackle you can pay money to, who you know week one's going to be ready to go. And you're not going to have to wait for them to grow and develop and take a risk. Like, what if it's Mekhi Becton with the Jets, who has a high draft pick that never worked out? There's less risk with a tackle if you go get him in free agency, who you've seen play before, you trust, you believe in. That might be the move, is free agent tackle, rookie draft pick, wide receiver. And then maybe your second round pick is another tackle. And I think your first 3 picks, if you're the Patriots in the draft, have to be on the offensive side of the football. But on the O-line and receiver, almost exclusively.
I don't hate it.
You want to talk about college football?
Yeah, go Ducks.
Number 5 Georgia beat number 1 Texas 30-15 on Saturday. Georgia's defense was dominant, and I'm curious if you have any thoughts on this game. I watched it; it was awesome. There was a call that it's interesting. Georgia, how do I say this? My fiance's grandma lives in Austin, Texas, and she was complaining that the calls were all bad, they're all unfair. I'm like, no. Texas got like every call in this game. Actually, I think that's insane that anyone would say that Texas got screwed over by the refs in this game, and Georgia still found a way to win.
Yeah.
And there was a call that got corrected where a Georgia receiver's running downfield. He engages with a defender, pushes a guy off his spot, turns around and gets the football, and actually the Texas guy intercepted it after getting interfered with. At first, they called defensive pass interference, and they picked up the flag, said that's not defensive pass interference. It's a great play. Give Texas an opportunity at the goal line they didn't really deliver on. What do you make of this game, Georgia beating Texas? Do you have any thoughts, high level first?
Yeah, just high level. I didn't watch this game to analyze it, just, purely as a fan of football here. But it's just intent. Georgia played with more intent and purpose and desire and accountability to the other players on their team. And that's really what the difference was. And I think that's why sometimes people have knocked Sarkisian as a coach, because in these big games, it just doesn't look vicious. Georgia came out and they looked vicious. Texas came out and looked a little bit more wide-eyed. And, as big of a stage as Austin, Texas is, and as big of a stage as they were on last year against UW in the college football playoff semifinal, again, like just how you show up and how you play and your demeanor and that look in your eyes means everything. And to me, that's what it came down to. Both the teams were equally talented, and Texas probably more talented than Georgia, if we're being honest, especially at the quarterback position. But Georgia came in with a vicious intent to win that football game, and that's why they won. Period. It wasn't flags. It wasn't this. It wasn't that. It was just there was a team that was more solely focused on winning that football game, and that was Georgia.
Kirby Smart said that after the game. I'm going to butcher his quote, but basically said, we weren't here to take pictures. We weren't here for the pomp and circumstance. We were here to whoop ass and win a football game. And it really did show. I mean, it really, and you saw all the pictures all day. Like, look at how many celebrities are at the Texas-Georgia game. Look at this. Look at Glenn Powell. Look at Colt McCoy. Look at all the F1 drivers. Look at this. Look at that. And it was like, Georgia's like, we've been here before. We don't care. We're here to win a football game. And it did come across that way.
Yeah, and that's 100% what it was. And there were plenty of opportunities for Texas to make plays, and at the end of the day, they just didn't.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. We're seeing so many, like, there isn't an undefeated team in the SEC right now. And I don't know if that is because of the playoff structure and everyone knows they're going to get a shot. I don't know what to read on that, but I love it. I think we're in a really fun place in college football this year where, if you ask me personally, I know Georgia lost Alabama. I thought last year Georgia was the best team and they got really snubbed by not being allowed into the college football playoff. This was the game. It's like, yeah, they're the best team in football. Like, they showed it again. And I actually find myself, because of the injustice that was done last year, it's cool to see them win a game like this, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, compared to the actual number one team in the nation, the University of Oregon Ducks, we'll have to see how that shakes out. But back to what you were saying about the SEC, it's just a redistribution of wealth, right? It's the same athletes, but now they're not all concentrated to Georgia and Alabama. They are spread out throughout the SEC and the Big Ten and the other big schools, right? And so now what you see is, again, that 2 deep and that 3 deep isn't as deep anymore. And it's leveled the playing field of talent. And yes, there's still a concentration of talent at the top of football, but within that top of football, there's still like another tier, right? And so we're just seeing more parity in college football, and we had the coaching change, obviously, of Nick Saban, which has certainly affected Alabama. But yeah, the biggest part is just NIL has opened the doors to other teams to compete.
Number 11 Tennessee beat number 7 Alabama 24-17. I think it's noteworthy. Alabama got the ball at the minute 24 left and a chance to tie the game up. And Jalen Milroe, first play of the drive, threw a really bad interception. What I want to talk about is I think Kalen DeBoer, the head coach at Alabama, has done a lot of really good stuff. I'm actually a big fan of his, and I think that he's got a really tough job. Like, filling the shoes of Nick Saban is a nearly impossible situation. He's constantly being compared to him. They're constantly like, there's a play on 4th and 1 where, but the receivers were shooting fadeaway jump shots because they're not involved in the play. And like, that's a bad look. I hate it too, but it's like, those are being used as examples to cut down Kalen DeBoer. And it's like, man, I don't think like that. If you're focused on that, I think it's a little silly. I don't know, man. Beating Georgia was a big deal to me. I know you lost to Vanderbilt and Tennessee, and that sucks. And you're 5-2. I think for the first time, there's 2 losses before November since like 2007 or something crazy in Alabama. But Tennessee's a good football team. Josh Heupel really knows Alabama very well. I'm curious what you make of this loss and kind of how you feel about Alabama just as a team and as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee is a real defense. They're a real defense. And while Nico Iamaleava has somewhat...
is brutal, bro. I know.
Since Nico...
there you go.
Has had the start of the game. He's regressed a little bit to start this year, which, you're going to have your ups and your downs, especially as a true freshman quarterback. He's a young cat coming in. The biggest part we've seen over the past couple of weeks has honestly been the regression of Jalen Milroe. To me, he's still a limited passer, and I know a lot of people were talking about the Georgia game and the previous games, kind of pointing out how he'd really improved, but when push came to shove, it didn't really seem like he had the juice for it. So whatever Kalen DeBoer has cooked up, maybe some teams have figured it out. Maybe it's just a weird slump you're going through in the season, and you're still trying to find your identity with Kalen DeBoer as a new coach, and you suffer that first loss against Vandy, so then people start to question a little bit. You start looking at the outside noise. I'm not really sure what it is, but yeah, Tennessee is a good team. Offensively, I hope they can get better, but yeah, Alabama they don't have the same punch that they used to.
You look at the SEC, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams are in the top 25. Of those 8 teams, they're all 5-2 or better. A&M 6-1, LSU 6-1, Georgia 6-1, Tennessee 6-1, Missouri 6-1, Texas 6-1, and then Vanderbilt and Alabama are both 9 teams at top 25 because Ole Miss is also at 5-2 in the top 25. So 9 teams in the SEC are in the top 25. That's crazy. There's a lot still to be figured out. Missouri, I think, falls away. A&M probably going to fall away as you play tougher games. But I think Vanderbilt takes a step back at some point. It's just things get more heated and you play more and more games against tougher teams.
Totally.
I think legit teams in that conference are Texas, Bama, Tennessee, LSU, Georgia, and Ole Miss. That's still a lot of football teams. Someone's got to lose. I wonder if Alabama beating Georgia was actually bad for them because it set expectations poorly. Like, oh, we're top dogs. We're the best in the country, baby. Like, they kind of got a little ahead of themselves, and it shows. I think that I really like Kalen DeBoer. I'm really rooting for him. I think he gets a lot of unfair criticism. But I think he's got to, have a conversation with the players. Like, look, guys, we got to figure this out. This is not acceptable losing these games. Because what we're at risk now of is maybe not making the college football playoff. And that cannot happen. We cannot be not a top 12 team in the country. We got to make the playoff. We're too good to frankly not be involved in that. So it's time to put up or shut up.
Yeah. And because of that second loss, you could maybe excuse the Vanderbilt situation, right? But now you got to have that come to Jesus moment. And you got to sit down, you got to hash it out, and you got to figure out what needs to be done across the board, from the coaching staff to the training staff to the weight staff to the players themselves, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. You have to sit down and figure it out because you can't afford to lose anymore. Now your back is officially against the wall, which is crazy to say for an Alabama team in a 12-team playoff. Your back is against the wall. And your schedule, guess what? Doesn't get that much easier. You've still got some dogs on your schedule. You've got Missouri. You've got to play LSU, who I think is a better team. Oklahoma, while they're not playing great, they still have enough talent on any given day to catch you off guard. And then you got the Iron Bowl. Anything can happen at the end of the season in your rivalry game. You've got 4 games that are going to be tough as shit. And your back's against the wall.
I saw one more really fun game this past weekend. It is a team they're full of shit. The Miami Hurricanes are number 6 in the country. They're 7-0. Are they really the 6th best team in the country? There's no way in hell. I mean, you have but regardless, I watched the Louisville game. Miami beats Louisville 52-45, an unranked Louisville team, and it was a blast to watch. If you want to watch scoring, dude, I probably bet you could go watch the highlights of that football game. You'd have a fun time. Cam Ward had 4 touchdowns. He was incredible. I just really enjoyed this game. I watched it a lot. I think it does highlight that Miami's not a real contender for like a national title, anything like that. They're a fun story. They're the darling of the ACC, but it's fluff. I mean, you're beating teams that are not very good. But I will say Miami does keep finding a way. And frankly, Cameron Ward keeps finding a way to win football games in important, meaningful moments. What do you make of Miami?
Yeah, I hate to call him a fraud because I think fraud has been overused, I feel like, recently in college football with these teams. Yeah, are they a top 25 team? Absolutely. Are they a top 6 team? No. Are they a top 15 team? Probably.
Are they a top 12? Like, I think they should be in the playoff if they win the ACC, right?
I think they'll end up in the playoff. They're probably a top 12 team. But yeah, Cam Ward is just that special. Again, I see him as a playmaker. I've grown. Now I got a lot of shit from you guys about how I talked about Cam Ward a couple of weeks ago. I watched a little bit closer. He certainly does deliver the ball from the pocket, but I still think what makes him great is his ability to make plays off script, extend drives, and just really kill you with his feet. It's clear that he can throw the football and he can deliver accurately, not taking that away from him. But yeah, he makes that team go. 319 yards and 4 TDs. hard to argue otherwise.
Yeah, I think they're going to be right around 7 or 8 when it comes time to the end of the year
Yeah.
with the playoff rankings, which means they're going to play a team like a LSU, like a Clemson, or someone who is a little more even keeled, a little more on their level.
Yeah.
They probably win their first playoff game potentially, but they don't win their second. I think they're going to run into an SEC team that's going to blow them out of the water, quite
Yeah,
honestly.
and they're lucky that they don't have Clemson on their schedule this year. Clemson's starting to get hot, and I know that again the ACC is not very strong, but Dabo Sweeney and Clemson are starting to find a little bit of their identity, and I think they'll catch some people off guard. Especially defensively, they're very strong. Cade Klubnik has shown some growth, but yeah, as far as Miami goes, I kind of liken them to FSU last year, but without a good defense. Where if Cam Ward goes down, this offense is going to struggle badly. And, an offense is going to struggle anytime you lose your starting quarterback. But we saw last year with Florida State just an inability to score the football. So, again, I'm praying for the health of Cam Ward. I think that he should be a late first round quarterback. I think he's got an opportunity to do some great things in the league. Man, it'd be really special if he could carry that team any further. But yeah, probably a second round loss in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean they don't play Clemson in the regular season. I think they're going to play Clemson in the ACC title game. So the way it works, there is no East or West. It's just the two best teams, and I think the two best teams in that division are going to be Clemson and Miami. So they're going to play Miami or play Clemson. It'll just be in the ACC title game where they could lose. They could lose. Like they play a 1-6 Florida State team this week, and I don't put it past them. I think it's maybe crazy to say this, but anything could happen. And I think Miami is the kind of team that we saw Alabama beat Georgia and then lose to Vanderbilt and Tennessee, kind of get really full of themselves and fall off a cliff. I don't put it past Miami to just get a little overconfident, talk a lot of shit about Florida State, a 1-6 football team, which sounds terrible on paper, but they got a lot of talented dudes still. I worry Miami could lose to Florida State this weekend. Just it happens. You get emotional and you overlook someone. Here are the top 6 teams in the country right now. Oregon's number 1 at 7-0, followed by Georgia at 6-1. Penn State at 6-0 is number 3. Ohio State at 5-1 is the number 4 team in the country. Texas at 6-1 is the number 5 team in the country, and Miami is the number 6 team in the country at 7-0. Which one doesn't belong? Miami. Miami probably couldn't beat any one of these teams on any given day. Maybe 1 out of 10 times, but Miami is there because of their record, not because of the teams they've beat or the way they've beat them. How do you feel about Oregon being number 1 in the country? How does that sit to you as a Duck fan?
I don't like it. It's kind of by default right now. I think that we've proven that we can hang with any of these teams that are in the top 4 right now. Just after having beat Ohio State, we looked very, very good against Purdue. It's really cool to see the number 1 up there. The first time I think since the Mariota days that we've had a number 1 team, or it might have been even just the year before that. Really, with Darren Thomas before we beat Auburn. I'm sorry, before we lost to Auburn, Michael Dyer was down. Don't talk to me about that game. It's cool to see him up there. I just wish that they were still number 2 or 3 to have something to look at versus being number 1. Then you turn around and you're looking at everybody chasing you down. Everybody's got you marked on your calendar. Everybody's obviously going to give you your best game. But yeah, it's exciting and it's cool to see.
Yeah, being number 1 does put a target on your back. However, I get that perspective. I want to say for Dan Lanning, a guy who I really love, who is really trying to build a new culture and rebuild this almost said franchise, this program. It's a landmark moment for Dan Lanning. Like to be the number 1 team in the country is not nothing. I don't know how long they hold that for. But you look at the rest of Oregon's schedule; they've already beat Ohio State. They play at Michigan November 2nd. Illinois this week is not an easy game.
Not at all.
But I think they end the year. Maybe I don't see any reason if they keep winning. Why would they get pulled back from 1? I don't know. It's a compliment, and the longer Oregon can stay at 1, the better it helps recruiting, the better it helps Dan Lanning. And I really think that you just have to enjoy it. Like if you're Dan Lanning, man, this is exactly where you want to be. It's so cool. Like the plan is working. everything you put in motion is paying off.
Hmm.
And I really like him. I very rarely root for teams. I root for people. Dan Lanning is such a cool guy to root for. You love him. You love that he stayed at Oregon. He
Yeah.
didn't take other job interviews. It's like, no, I want to build it here. And it's working out really well for him. And I think that's so cool to see.
Yeah, and in the era where we've had coaches leave to take their quote unquote dream jobs and take more money, we saw that happen with Willie Taggart. He took off, took a bunch of money
1
at
year.
Florida State, and then we saw Mario Cristobal do the same thing, chase some money at Miami. So to have Dan here, and in that last cycle, he was getting the calls about Alabama, he was getting the calls about other vacancies. Just great to see him stay grounded in the U of O and understand that, Phil Knight's got the checkbook open.
Well, also, Frosty Westering, I played at Pacific Lutheran briefly. He had this whole saying when he was there, make it big time where you're at. I love that. I think it's really easy to look ahead to greener pastures and this and that. I've considered moving, for example, right? And it's really easy to be like, my life will be better when I just move. When I move to Hawaii, when I move here, when I move there. But no, you got to be happy with where you're at. You got to make it where you're at. And
Grass is green where you water it, baby.
I don't think Dan Lanning would have had an easier time at Alabama. I
No,
wouldn't want to follow up Nick Saban. I'm
no shot.
good, dude. I got a great thing at Oregon. I'm winning. I've already built this program a little bit. Let's just invest in where I'm at. And I think he did the right thing, and I'm really rooting for him as a human. I think he's awesome.
Yeah, me too.
Let's look to end the show today. We got a question from Patreon, but first I'd like to look ahead to next weekend. Does that plan sound good to you?
Yeah, let's do it.
So next weekend in college football, we already talked about it a little bit. 6-1, number 20 in the country, Illinois goes to Eugene, plays number 1, 7-0 Oregon. I think that's really fun, really interesting. Do you have any comments on that? Do you want to say anything?
It's a top 25 matchup. Illinois looks like a solid squad. They moved up again in the rankings. I think they were 22 last week. Now they're 20. So it's not a slouch team that's coming in. It's a 12:30 kickoff. Sometimes those early afternoon kickoffs can be hard because you got to get up a little bit earlier. You got to get to the stadium a little bit earlier, and they can kind of catch you off guard. So excited, but again, there's no reason that Oregon shouldn't win this game.
The Illinois quarterback, we've gotten a couple of write-ins on Patreon about him, actually. People really like him. He's interesting. I wonder, man, and it's Luke Altmaier.
Altmaier, yeah.
Yeah, 15 touchdowns, 1 interception on the year, playing really, really well. What does a 31-10 victory do for Oregon? I think that's possible. I don't know that it won't be a close game, but I think there's also a world where if anyone wins with a blowout, it's Oregon. I think it just further solidifies your position as a number 1 team in the country. I look ahead to Oregon's schedule the rest of the year. I don't see any reason to pull them off a 1 if they keep winning, personally.
Yeah, you just got to win, and you got to win in dominant fashion. One of these games, if not multiple, will come down to, a score or two. I look at the game against Washington while they're down bad. They've had our number over the past several years. That could be a tough game. But yeah, again, against Illinois, a 31-10 victory certainly holds your top spot.
I wonder if number 1, though, is that a blessing or a curse? Because you're the number 1 team in the country. You're going to play a number 12 seed in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
That's more than likely going to be a pretty capable SEC program. Something like an LSU or maybe an Alabama. Is that fool's gold? Being that it's not like you're playing Boise State if you're the number 1 team playing the number 12 seed. I think it's really going to be one of these SEC programs that is an ugly loss or 2 that gets put at 12. I think that's a tough. It's not great.
I haven't thought about that yet, so let's go ahead and cross that bridge when we get there.
Okay.
I don't want to think about having a matchup against an LSU, a 2-loss Bama or a 2-loss LSU,
or even Tennessee. Tennessee in that spot, like that's. I think it's going to be someone like a Tennessee and LSU and Alabama, probably if the number 12 seed. If you're number 1 still, like that's interesting to me.
The great thing is I'm just not worried about the Duck offense.
Yeah,
we're going to score points. It's will the defense show up?
Yeah. Still got to win the Big Ten title. It got a lot ahead, but
yeah, there's so much in between now and
then. Florida State plays at number 6 Miami this weekend. Florida State's 1-6, Miami's 7-0. I still think it's kind of a trap. I think that you're going to be riding high. You're going to talk a lot of crap on social media all week, and unfortunately, it's easy to overlook a team like Florida State. I think Miami's kind of vulnerable. What do you make of that? Is there an upset alert here?
Yeah, Miami's on upset alert every week until further notice. Let's just be clear. They're playing in these heart attack games, these high scoring games week after week. So they are on upset notice until otherwise noted.
Number 21 plays at number 15 Alabama. Number 21 Missouri, who's 6-1, plays at number 15 ranked 5-2 Alabama. It's a huge game for Alabama. This is the defining moment of their season is how they respond to losing to Tennessee. Missouri is a good football team. They got a good quarterback. They're a good program in general. I don't know what to make of this. It's going to be probably if you're going to watch one game this weekend, actually, this is probably the game, to be honest. It's the most interesting.
Yeah, it feels like it's going to be a coin toss. I probably won't tune into it. I'll try and check some Spark notes on it later. But yeah, it'll probably be a coin flip.
And then another game. I'm not going to watch this, but it's the service academies this year are doing some really good stuff, and so it's worth noting that number 12 Notre Dame, who's 6-1, plays at number 24 ranked 6-0 Navy. That's an interesting. I'm not going to watch it. I'm going to tell you right now, not going to watch that game. But if you want to, I'm sure it's going to be good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's clear how I feel about Notre Dame frauds. So I think Navy has a legitimate chance to not just win, but win by multiple scores.
When is this game? I wonder what game. How am I going to do this? So let me look real quick. 9 a.m. that game happens. 12:30. So I'm going to probably watch the Oregon Illinois game and the Missouri Bama game on multi-view, and then at 4:00 Florida State plays Miami and switch to that. And if I wanted to, my perfect Saturday, that would include watching Notre Dame Navy in the background Saturday morning, just having it on, watching loosely. But there's nothing, when you look at the schedule, there's nothing really competing with that game. It's going to pull me away. Like Nebraska and Ohio State maybe is on multi-view, but you can pretty evenly go from Notre Dame Navy into Oregon, Illinois, and or Missouri, Alabama. Now, YouTube TV lets you watch multi-view, which I love. And then at 4:00, watch the Florida State Miami game. That's a pretty good Saturday, if you ask me. And then 4:30, LSU plays Texas A&M. I think LSU wipes the floor with A&M, to be totally honest, but we'll see.
I don't know about they might have got the right coach over there.
I just don't respect their quarterback situation at all. I just really don't.
That's fair, but they're starting to put something together, and they've always had the talent. They just haven't had the coach the past couple of years. They could be a dangerous team.
Hey, man, you look at the box score, at least from Missouri, Notre Dame, or Missouri A&M. Connor Weigman, 18 for 22 passing, 276 yards. And this running back, Le'Veon Moss, 12 carries, 138 yards, 3 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns on the ground. They beat a good Missouri team 41-10. Oh, A&M LSU is actually a better game than I thought. That's a fun one, dude.
That's what I'm saying. They are a serious team.
Before we get to Saturday,
serious is tough, but they are a good team.
They're not nothing. That's a meaningful win. Beating the crap out of Missouri is not. I respect that victory a lot. And their defense shut down Brady Cook. I mean, interesting, huh? Okay, A&M. I didn't know your game. All right.
Sorry, I wasn't familiar with your game.
In the NFL, Thursday Night Football is, man, me and Molly have a Thursday night date every night. We watch football together, but I'm not that excited for this game. The Vikings play at the Rams. I'm like, all right. Like Minnesota's going to win. That'll be fun, but I wish it was a better game on Thursday night, in my opinion.
I think it's the return of Cooper Kupp, so watch out.
Oh, interesting. Okay. On Sunday night, Dallas plays at the 49ers, a 3-3 Dallas Cowboy team against a 3-4 49ers team. It's a meaningful game, honestly. I mean, the 49ers got to resurrect their season. They got to win here, right?
And so does Dallas. Dallas needs a win.
See, I wrote off Dallas weeks ago, whereas the 49ers, I have hope they could figure it out.
Right, that's fair.
So I guess I'm going to root for the 49ers here, honestly.
Yeah, I'm rooting for the Niners, but both teams need a win. It's a conference win. Got to have it.
Monday night, we get to watch my Steelers host the Giants. That'll be really fun. I think they're going to kick the crap out of the Giants. I'm going to love it. It's going to be so much fun.
They should blow the doors off them. If there's an opportunity to get the Pittsburgh Steelers defense in your fantasy football league, get them because they're going to be your highest scorer this week.
Not 1, not 2, but 3, maybe 4, maybe even 5 turnovers from Daniel Jones. Other than that, the other 4 games really stand out next week in the NFL. The Bills play at Seattle. That's really fun. it's kind of a moment for both teams to really prove who they are. I think it's close. I think it's good. What say you?
Yeah, it's going to be a great mid-off, if you will. Both teams are at that kind of mid-level, and we're looking at who's going to take a step up if there's a step to be taken. My gut is on the Bills, right?
Yeah.
With the acquisition of Amari Cooper, their defense is starting to figure things out, even though I don't think they quite have the personnel to sustain it. And again, anytime you got Josh Allen, you got Superman back there, you're going to have a good chance to win some football games. So I'm going to give the nod to the Bills here. But yeah, great opportunity for two teams that are kind of sitting in this middle area to, take a step.
The 4-2 Chicago Bears go on the road and play the 5-2 Washington Commanders. Man, I really want Jaden Daniels to be healthy and play in that game. Now, ribs are tough because it affects your. I mean, I guess you can take a cortisone shot and just play through it, but ribs are really uncomfortable to have it injured, especially playing quarterback, throwing the football. I injured my ribs one time, and just every throw hurt. It wasn't very fun. But I'm hoping we get Caleb Williams against Jaden Daniels. If we don't, it's two other Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks, Caleb Williams against Marcus Mariota. It's still a fun matchup. I think it's probably the game of the week from the from the games that are not, primetime games. That's probably the best one in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. And it's going to be the most exciting, right? It's the two picks in the draft, 1 and 2. It's going to be fun. Hopefully.
The Falcons play at Tampa. Both teams are 4-3. Tampa's coming off of losing their top two receivers to injury. It's a huge opportunity for Atlanta to kind of claim the top of that division. What do you make of that matchup?
They need to win this game, and they need to win it convincingly. Otherwise, I am very concerned for the remainder of their season and this schedule of theirs that we thought was going to be very easy. I don't know. Is it going to pan out for them? So I just need to see more consistency from this Falcons team. This is the opportunity to do it. Yes, Tampa Bay has a solid defense, but they are so depleted on offense. I don't anticipate them being able to play much complimentary football. But like you said, they're not. The Bucs aren't necessarily depleted in terms of skill players. They've still got McMillan. They've still got Shepard. They've got Rashad White and Bucky Irving. So there's some things there for them still. We'll see.
It's really weird. The NFC has got a lot of really good teams. And it's like the NFC North, for example, is like so competitive. So getting a wild card spot in the NFC is really tough. The AFC is really top heavy with Kansas City, Houston, and Baltimore, and maybe Buffalo's in the mix too there. But after that, it's wide open. And so a team like the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 3-4, right now they're the number 9 seed. They're not out of it. They can totally bounce back and get back on their feet and save their season. But they host Philly, who's 4-2 this week. The 4-2 Eagles on the road at the 3-4 Bengals. It's a massive moment for Joe Burrow and the Bengals. You got to beat Philly here to kind of get back on track and resurrect a season that looked lost at one point. I think that's a great game. What do you make of Philly at Cincinnati on Sunday?
I'd love to see Cincy win this game. I really would. It's going to be a great test for this Bengals defense that has struggled this year. A lot of offensive skill power on that Eagles roster. And then on the flip side, Bengals offense kind of had a tough game last week, you could say, after being relatively hot. So how do they respond, and can they put some points up on a vulnerable defense that is Philadelphia?
Let's end the show today with this. A write-in from Ben.
All right, Ben, what you
Ben
got for us?
Hey, Zach and Nathan. Hope everything's been great with you. We are 7 weeks into the year, and with everything that you've seen so far, what would be your current prediction for a Super Bowl matchup? I'm curious to hear what you think given the year so far. I also want to say I want to say how much I love listening to your show throughout my week. I've been a longtime Patreon supporter now, and I'm still happy to be supporting. Every time I open YouTube, a new episode of SOS is the first thing I look for. Keep doing what you're doing, and I hope everything keeps going well for you, Ben. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, Ben.
So who do we think? What are our predictions for a Super Bowl matchup? I got mine, but let's hear yours first if you got one.
Off rip until otherwise noted, out of the AFC, it's going to be Kansas City. I'm going to go ahead and take the Lions here. I think it's going to be Kansas City against the Lions. That's probably my matchup. Matchup number 2 would be Ravens Lions probably, and then matchup number 3 would be Kansas City Green Bay.
Oh, that would sell a lot of intrigue. I had the same thought. It's Kansas City and Detroit look like the two best teams in their respective conferences. Um, and the question is, can the Ravens knock off Kansas City? I mean, I think Ravens are a better team on paper, but until they do it, it's
All
just a lot of empty.
all signs point towards yes, they should be a better team and should win that game. But then again, that defense that again historically has been good looks a little bit vulnerable this year, and I'm not sure what Marlon Humphrey, what the status of his knee is. I know he dinged something up earlier in that game, but if it comes down to, late in the season and Kansas City starts to kind of figure out their offense, maybe they acquire a wide receiver 1 or 2-ish guy before the trade deadline. If that defense is vulnerable, I don't feel optimistic for the Ravens.
I really believe it's going to be an NFC North team representing the NFC, whether that's, I think, Detroit number 1, followed by Minnesota or Green Bay. One of those 3 teams is going to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. I just can't see it any other way, honestly. I don't see Atlanta playing strong enough to make that leap. Seattle, the 49ers, and the
No.
Eagles and Cowboys aren't taking that spot. Honestly, Washington's really interesting. I think Washington could win their division, but I think doesn't ultimately beat a team like Detroit. It'd be really fascinating if a rookie quarterback and Jaden Daniels made it to that spot, but they would lose, I think, to a Baltimore or a Kansas City.
Yeah.
I think the only team that can beat Kansas City or Baltimore probably is Detroit, to be honest. I think.
Yeah, Detroit's built to do it.
Yeah.
They can control the clock with the run game. They can hit you deep. They've truthfully got it all. And let's remember, last year they're a meltdown, and honestly, an epic meltdown away from being in the Super Bowl in the first place. So I've got them making their way back.
When Detroit looks like a team that is aware of that, like they are here, they're not playing around, and they want to get back.
They have that focus. They have that intensity. That loss early in the year to Tampa Bay, I think, kind of woke them up a little bit. And I think that they have been out to play every game since.
Well, you talk about like the Jets, right? Having every week the press conferences, oh, we shot ourselves in the foot. We got our own way. We're making too many mistakes. Like that is not what's going on in Detroit. Detroit is not shooting themselves in the foot, and they're kind of taking advantage of every opportunity you give them. If you give them an opportunity and a window to win a football game, they're gonna seize that moment.
Yeah, they as a team almost feel a little bit inevitable now. I feel confident that if Goff needs to make a game-winning drive to get a field goal or to get a touchdown, they're capable of doing it. It's really impressive.
Well, think back to my favorite Monday Night Football game I've ever watched in my entire life.
Is this the Rams Chiefs 2019?
Jared Goff, Patrick Mahomes, those yellow jerseys the Rams wore, the all red the Chiefs wore. It was a blast, dude. And I think a Super Bowl between Kansas City and Detroit could give us a game like that. It's going to deliver. It'd be really, really fun.
It'd be really, really cool.
And by the way, 2 good defenses. Like honestly, like I know Kansas City's had struggles on offense. The receiving core's got issues, but they're probably the most complete teams in football when it comes to like when you count for special teams, you account for the defense, you account for the offensive line. I think the Ravens are the only team that in the AFC matches up with Kansas City. And it might be better on paper, but man, I think like the Ravens defense has left a lot to be desired. Kansas City's defense has not. And I think we're aligned here. I think we had the 2 teams I wrote down on my piece of paper, right? Were, if you look at it, KC and Detroit, and you said them first.
That's
so
what it is.
We're aligned, man. Anything you want to add before we go today?
Dark horse team be the Packers.
Oh, hey, their defense looks good, man.
Their defense looks really good. They're playing free. They're playing fast. This is probably the most physical Green Bay defense I've seen in a while. I can't remember the name of the guy from Boston College. Their defensive coordinator that you love and want to move to Pittsburgh with.
Is it Hafley? I want to say Jeff Hafley, but I looked him up and he's
Hafley.
Like, I see like Republican politicians. So I'm like, is that? I want to check. I'm scared now. Packers defensive coordinator. Is it? It is Jeff Hafley. Okay.
Yeah.
There's another guy named Jeff Hafley who's a politician, apparently. I didn't know that.
Outside of that, it's Go Ducks, Marcus Mariota. No shade to Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels, go ahead and rest the ribs for a week. I want to see Marcus Mariota show out and then somebody sign him next year. That's what I want.
Okay. Jeff Hafley was a Republican congressman in the show West Wing.
My favorite show.
I never would have
I love
known that.
that show.
I was like, it can't be him, right? It's just two F's, not one, so it's different name spelling. But Jeff Hafley is he's killing it with the Packers defense,
Killing it.
honestly. Well, man, that's all I got. Dude, I think pretty good time. 2.5 hours. It's not midnight yet. We're doing pretty good.
It's quick 2 and some change.
Yeah, man. Hey, I love you. Thanks for coming on. I'm glad your car wasn't broken into mid-show. And great job today.
Thanks, man. Love you, brother.
Take care, brother. Have a good day. Bam, we are done.